generally a good night. I didn't go for the Chinese with everyone, the buffet. I sort of wanted to maximise my playing time and just had some sandwiches in the car, and yeah, just had a good evening, and then headed back to Sheffield, and then the next day sort of did some shopping and for all the snacks for the booth, loaded up the car and headed over to Blackpool, and we had a very good weekend there as ever. Mostly, same old, as it is. We were in a different position, the booth this year though, that was a bit confusing at times because I'd walk back in through the multiplayer corridor and then just turn instantly left, assuming I could just go back into the booth, and we weren't there. There was some people with laser burnt chopping boards and things like that. So yeah, that was a little bit of a change up. But otherwise, it was all systems go really for Blackpool, and played a bunch of arcade games. They had an extra Sega motion cab in the mix this year. So instead of just the Space Harrier and Outrun, the person, whoever owns it, or the collective that own them and take them around everywhere for play, they've added a Power Drift to it, so going straight from Outrun into Power Drift was quite the experience, because Outrun's got, it tips, but it's kind of fairly gentle, I suppose, really. But it feels like takes your brain a little bit of time to get used to the fact that you're playing a game and you're moving around in it. But it's fairly easy to get accommodated with it. And then I moved over next door to Power Drift after I'd finished on Outrun, because someone was on Power Drift at the time when I walked up there. And pretty much at the first corner that I turned, I nearly fell out of the machine, because it tilts about 3.5 times more than Outrun does, and it's actually pretty violent, which befits the game well, because Power Drift is all about roller coaster tracks, and it's a lot more dynamic
Power Drift's
than
a
Outrun.
favorite of mine. I've got the upright, but I would love to have the sit down. It really does sling you around.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, he nearly did fall out. I've got pictures of him on the website. If you go through our images section in the menus on the website, you'll see Random nearly being thrown out of a cab.
So yeah, that was a good fun evening. There was playing games and having fun, sticking fingers up Ben's bum, as Zadie would say. We had the usual curry, Mr. Bazrays as well, and that was a good weekend. The journey home was a bit shit, having to go through some extremely narrow, basically mountain passes in a blizzard in a car that's really no good in snow. Although it got me all the way back over the mountain pass fine, it was when I got to within 100 meters of the house that I got completely wrecked and just stuck a few times because of the stupid hills in Sheffield. But yeah, overall it was a good weekend, and I picked up...
Another show title, The Stupid Hills of Sheffield.
Yeah, I managed to pick up, thanks to Alan's Japanese Retro Games, who's been quite a regular on a lot of the sort of the markets circuit that we now have in the UK and the expos. He had a lot of stuff there, and he had a lot of good deals on Beatmania software, which generally it used to be got to a point where it was hard to even find any Japanese games at Play Expo, but he had not only Japanese games but like interesting Japanese, certainly to me, like interesting weird Japanese games and stuff. So yeah, I was able to pick up a good few games there, and treated myself also to a new Beatmania controller. So since then I've been having a bit of a play on them. Sort of got the open source scan converter, updated the firmware on that again, and sort of got all that rigged up, and I've been sort of dialing that in for my capture gear as well as the HDTV, and sort of revisiting how good a device that is. That's really nice, sort of low latency scan converter for getting digital output from good sort of SCART consoles. So I had a dabble in that, but I've sort of ended up embarking on a bit of a foolish project to rearrange my room, which my sort of studio / some games room / driving simulator room and splash spare guest bedroom, which is turning out that it's always going to be a nightmare because I had just boxes and boxes of shit everywhere, all sorts of random stuff that I've accrued over the years.
Everything you own is random stuff.
Well, I suppose, yeah. Yeah, I decided I've had enough. I was using my computer more and more, and the way I was using my computer was sat on the floor or a beanbag with the monitors on a coffee table, and I was just fed up of sitting on the floor, and I was like, I want an actual desk. I'm going to make a desk. I've got a picture in my mind of how it's going to be really awesome, and then I've bought a new TV, so I've got a spare big plasma TV which I'm going to put above the computer monitors on the wall. So I can then sit back on the sofa bed. I've got rid of I had 2 coffee tables. I've got rid of one of them. It was just basically used as a storage bit and a place to put my big CRT TV, which can now go beside my desk, and I'll be able to sit back on the couch. I've got 1 coffee table. I can see the big plasma, or I've got the big Trinitron CRT TV. I've got the 5.1 sound system hooked into them both, so I'll be able to sit back and relax and play games better. I can sit at the desk and play PC games like Civilization and strategy games like that a lot more comfortably. So I think, and it's a bit of a better sort of situation as well for recording and for podcasting, hopefully. So a little bit more comfortable, but it's sort of going to be a mission. And we've also had in-laws staying over this weekend, so it had to actually be useful as a spare bedroom for the weekend and things like that. So I couldn't disrupt it too much until yesterday, but I'll get there slowly but surely. But I've not really had, I thought I was going to spend most of February playing Monster Hunter World, but all of my mates were scared that they didn't want to play with me because they thought I'd just piss off and just leave them all in the dust and they'd never keep up with me. But they're sort of twice as far through it as I am, because I've not had a chance really to sit down and play it. But I thought, that's not going anywhere. So I've got plenty of time, and this means hopefully I'll be able to more comfortably sit and play more retro stuff. Got a spare Pi, so I'm going to sort of get my RetroPie emulation station back up and running through the CRT on that, and I've got the arcade, nice arcade joysticks, so I'm going to get my main ROM set was just fucked somehow and doesn't work, so get that back up and running and have a better sort of situation, whereas it's been sort of a bit hodgepodge on sort of trying to play older games in a way that I'd like to, because the CRT was often buried under a pile of all sorts of electrical equipment and
that's something I've been talking about a bit myself, is making sure that things are accessible. Like with the C64, in the past you had to hook up intermediate computer with dedicated software to forward pack just to get the thing to kind of work, and then it was like, okay, I did it, and now I'm done. But now, there's literally 1 cord hookup, and my Commodore is seamlessly displayed on a I think it's like a 36-inch LCD here in the studio. It's on the internet every time. I literally just turn it on, and by the time it's loaded, whatever program it is, it's been logged on and ready to go BBSing. It's just a great experience. So I think what you're doing there is, kind of goes along with that. Make the thing accessible. Mike, you've been up to a shitload of stuff too, right?
Yeah, well, I obviously went to Arcade Club and Blackpool with Random. There was a rather interesting little tale around the Lucky Dip. So, in the booth, for those who've never seen us at an expo, in the UK, certainly we have a big cardboard box full of shredded newspaper and loads of random shit. So there's games in there. There's been magazines. There's been all sorts of gaming stuff. At the last revival, I think it was, we gave away Neil's complete N64 controller, cables, console, the full thing, for £1, a lucky dip of £1. But it's always been in like a cardboard box, and we've decorated the box with, a bit of artwork here and there. But I've always felt it looked a bit tatty, so I thought, right, we'll go upmarket and we'll get like a real plastic bin to put this stuff in. So, you can open the lid, reach in, close the lid, etc. It says Lucky Dip on it. There's a sign on the front that says Lucky Dip. And so we got the booth set up Friday for Blackpool, and came back Saturday morning, looked in the Lucky Dip, and it's completely empty. For once in their lives, the cleaners in the Norbreck had been round and emptied the bins, and they'd thought that this bin that says Lucky Dip all over it was an actual bin and emptied it. Not only did they do that Friday night, they also did it Saturday night as well. Because
was it a language issue? Like they couldn't read things that said like Lucky Dip?
I think there probably was. I suspect we may be using Polish cleaners or something of that ilk. So, yeah.
I think in the future, put a black bag over it that says "Do not touch."
Well, I've actually gone one better. I've made a full-on cardboard arcade cab, put a marquee on it and everything, and it says clearly Lucky Dip. It's black and red. It's got T-molding on them with insulation tape. This thing is, to all intents and purposes, an arcade machine. So I can't see it happening again. I'll put a picture of it.
The Norbreck.
If we take it to the Norbreck again, yes.
Cleverly hidden.
I suspect the same problem won't happen at Revival. I'll throw a picture of it in the news items. So we got up to all of that, and I've been doing a ton of work on the driving cab, and I came up against a rather interesting problem. So I've got the gear mechanism off a Sega Rally 2, which is 4-speed gear shift in an H frame, standard 1, 2, 3, 4 H. Now, ideally, what you would like is for each position of that gear stick to have its own micro switch. So when you're in first, it activates that micro switch, and the system knows you're in first, etc. So you'd expect 4 micro switches. However, they chose to save pennies and make that system run off 3 micro switches. So what you've actually got is one that detects when the gear stick is forward, so in first and third, one that detects when it's backwards in second and fourth, and one that detects when it's to the left in first and second. And so I found a YouTube video of a guy who'd done it, and he said, use this chip, wire this to this pin, this to this pin. So I got a little breadboard, stuck the chip in it, connected the wires up. It didn't work. So I posted in UK VAC forums about it, and the guy there said, "No, that's not going to work." But other people claim to have got it working. So anyway, I set about designing a circuit that would let me achieve that goal, and I managed to do it. But what I did was lifted off the common ground. So the 3 switches had a common ground, and I lifted those spade end connectors off the micro switches, reconnected wires to each. So I now had 6 wires coming off these 3 micro switches, and with a little jiggery pokery and just simple rerouting of cables through the breadboard again. So I left the original mechanism and everything intact. This could take off my spade ends, put the originals back on, and it'll go straight back in a Sega cab. So I've not damaged anything. But I've got this breadboard running a circuit that I designed that gives me now 4 outputs. So,
and by the way, your girlfriend's post on that was priceless.
Oh, yeah.
She said something on Facebook like, so apparently, my boyfriend just designs a circuit when he needs one, because you do that.
Yeah. Love being with Sheldon, I think she said something like that.
Yeah.
So
whereas I'm looking at that like, oh, that's a Monday.
Yeah. So, we've been up to that. And if you can see behind me on the screen now, you'll see a folded up piece, maybe screwed up piece of green cloth behind me. We're going to play around with a green screen. Obviously not tonight, but for next show, I hope to have a green screen set up.
You can pick it up and juggle it around.
So we will have a dick about with some green screen stuff and put me in different locations in live news. So that's what I've been up to. What about y'all?
Well, I have been up to a butt ton of modern gaming. It's sort of a reverse Sparklepuss Bitcoin outcome, I guess is the best way to put it. I've had my miners running for a long time, and what they earn, I just throw in. occasionally I have bought small amounts of Bitcoin. Like when the trend for, weeks was just up, 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 up. I figured, I'm probably, because I knew I needed to order a new projector for the house. And I kind of looked at like, well, I need that projector. Let me throw some Bitcoin, some cash in a Bitcoin, because like Newegg accepts Bitcoin. Yeah. So I threw some cash in a Bitcoin, and sure enough, by like 2 months later, when I was ready to order, instead of having like, what was it, $700, $800, now I had like $1,800 worth of value. And the projector was on sale, which is good. So I bought the projector, and I said, fuck it, I'm not paying for it. I'll buy a PS3. So I bought a PS3 Pro, and I just picked the Pro model because, why not? It was only a few bucks. Well, it's $100 more. And I'm not really spending actual money for it. And I just ordered a spectrum of games, not, FPSs and, not too many FPSs, and not, any sports games, any crap I didn't like. What I initially got is I got Fallout 4, the mech one. Damn it. I can picture it. Titanfall 2. Got the racing game, Forza or whatever it was. The new Final Fantasy. The Star Wars. It was the Star Wars edition, so I got Star Wars Battlefront 2 because I heard a great deal more about that than Battlefield 1 in terms of positive reviews, and a couple other games. So I ordered this thing up. They drop it off at the house, and so I unbox it, and I thought enough this time to save the box, the packing, the label, something I'm trying to do more of. Because like the last few modern systems I bought, the Wii, the PS3, I pitched all that stuff, So I did keep all that, and I started off with Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, it seems, and I will give the industry credit for this, they have at least accommodated a little bit more in recent months, I would say, people who just aren't good double thumb gamers. So there's basically a tourism mode on Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, you do still have to actually show up and shoot and perform to some level, but they've lowered the bar low enough that an old fart like me, whose idea of double input gaming is Robotron, and they actually make it where I'm not the idiot I would get myself creamed on online, PvP, no question. Mm-hmm. But I can actually go into the scenarios and I don't get murdered. I'm not the idiot over in the corner spinning in circles with his gun in the air. It's actually controllable to a degree that I can advance through, the missions. Not easily, sometimes in more stalls than I'd like, but the graphics are jaw-dropping. The variety, they move you through all the major characters, Solo, Leia, the new, Empire characters. I can't remember her name. Iden or something, the main character. Just absolutely love Battlefront 2. I'm going through that, just having a great time. Titanfall 2, sort of the same thing. I put it on fairly super easy mode, and I've actually gotten through quite a few missions. And the thing is, like, I watch, like, especially the younger folks play these games, and they're snapping, zooming. Their reticle always seems to fall right on the enemy, and then they light them up, right? Whereas I'm sitting there making like 3 adjustments. Okay, there he is. He's going to pop up again. Okay, it takes me 6 seconds to do what they're doing in a second. No, so even with my crap skills, I'm enjoying it. Final Fantasy, this one's kind of weird, man. It's done like in modern or post-apocalyptic days. So you've got like a car that you're driving around in. It's just strange stuff. But it's okay. Fallout 4, I really kind of had a disappointment with Fallout New Vegas. Abandoned that rather quickly. This one, so far I'm sticking through it, and I really, really like it. It's sort of the traditional story that I guess I thought, how many times can they remake this? I guess it's kind of infinite because there were so many people sealed in different vaults before the nukes that I guess you could just tell the story from different people's perspectives over and over and over. So we may see Fallout 99. Who knows? But yeah, I've been knocking around the PS4 Pro. playing just a butt ton of games. I probably bought about 10 games total, and it is the only one I didn't like. And for next live news, I'll put this thing up as a prize rather than return it. I accidentally bought basically it's the Final Fantasy Smash Brothers version. It's like a $65 game, but I'm not going to play this game, never in a million years. And I honestly just clicked on it thinking it was another Final Fantasy, and it was not. So I'm not going to use this thing. I'll just give it away as a prize. You know what? I'll do it on the Facebook. I'll put it out there and have somebody write a good essay or something like that. So yeah, that's what I'll do, Mike. I'll Facebook this one and give it away to a listener and get it out the door quickly. So we'll do that. But yeah, that's about it for me. Just banging away on a PS4 Pro with actually a pretty good experience in modern gaming.
Yeah, surprised me when you picked that up. You mentioned that in WhatsApp. I was surprised when you got it, but hey ho.
As most would be. So I guess we're rolling into the news here. Sparklepuss actually looks like he can join us now. I guess his work all ended. So we'll pull him in here in a few minutes. The thing I wanted to lead off with here. Okay, it looks like he's trying to call in now. Let's pull him in, and then we'll go into the lead discussion I wanted to start before we did the news items.
Okay,
so
let me find him there, yeah. Okay. We may need to pick up and drop this at some point because Scott's got to go shortly as he's going to work. Sparkle's coming in, we don't know how long for, and Random is perhaps going to come back and join us again. So the only constant through this may be me. We'll find out. So are you there, Sparkle?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
We are live.
Cool. So we were just about to kick off our. We've done the roundtable. We're about to kick off our sort of lead discussion here. Before we get to the news items, and that is the terminal illness of Ted Dabney. So we got this through a number of sources, family, friends, and then it went pretty much all over the gaming public. Ted Dabney is he has announced that he has esophageal cancer and he is not seeking treatment. That is pretty understandable because esophageal cancer. And I had a relative that died from this. My father had acid reflux in the 80s. They didn't really know what it was back then, so they just said, take Tums, it's acid, And what happens is the acid slowly erodes the esophagus, which causes cancerous conditions. And usually by the time it develops and is detected, I'm no physician, but just from common experience, it's kind of like heart disease in women, It gets very aggressive and very far progressed before it's really understood it's there. So, if he's choosing not to seek treatment, it's because the treatment is pretty brutal and pretty low outcome of success. So we understand that, Ted wants to live out his final days, as well as himself as he can. I would say I can't fault him. I'd probably make the same decision in that because it's, a lot easier to live, with that than is the chemo and everything else, especially given the chance of success. So we certainly, I certainly respect his decision, but we're only going to have the co-creator of video games as we know it today, the co-founder of Atari. We're only going to have him for a few more months. And, his final weeks to months, he's not going to be able to communicate after a while. He's not going to feel like it. So, there's a couple things about this that have been on my mind. One, I would love to see Nolan Bushnell come out and man up and give credit to Ted Dabney. Enough of this story about the Book of Nolan, saith Nolan created video games on his own. Come out and publicly give some love to the man that, turned your idea into a physical item, and certainly, Ted's name went from being non-existent to prominence, over the last couple of years, which is good. I would like to see that happen. And I'd like to see the gaming world as a whole take notice. Maybe, do something to memorialize this. Because this is, again, the co-founder of Atari, which led to, arcade games as they were developed. I mean, it was always going to happen. Somebody was going to make a video game arcade game. It was going to happen. Someone was going to bring Pong to the world or something like it. It was going to happen. The time was right. There were a lot of people with this idea. They did it first, and they were the ones that charted the path. So I'd like to see, maybe people who endlessly prattle on about, the latest from Steam or whatever, take notice. Gamers of the modern generation really take notice to, the equivalent of the Wright brothers, for aviation, and give this guy some love and some credit. And I mean, he was blown away and really very heartwarming feeling that he had based on, what happened when his name finally got out there, that people actually cared or knew who he was. I'd like to see that happen 1,000 times larger before he goes. I think we the gaming world owe him that. And there's some other things I'd like to see happen. That I guess maybe I don't have as fully formed thoughts to articulate like that. But so what do you guys think? I mean, Ted Dabney, terminal illness. He's made his choice, and we only have him for a few more months.
Yeah,
what do you guys think?
Yeah, you've got to respect the decision, and like you say, it's one that we may make ourselves in that situation. It's sad news, obviously, but he's an old man, and he hasn't been in the best of health for quite a while. Now we probably know why. But how cool would it be if Nolan were to come out and do it here, the same way as co-founders did on this show? So that would be kind of cool, but likely never happen. Open. It is. I've asked him several times on Facebook and he ignores me, but yeah. We could try it again, I suppose. It would be a wonderful, not end to the story, but some closure on parts of the story.
Sparkpuss?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a horrible way to go. I think personally I would prefer just to not wake up one day, or I think when you know that you have a terminal illness and you at least have some time to kind of get your affairs in order. But like you said, it's sad, but we do have him here for a few more months, so hopefully everyone will sort of celebrate his life and the inventions and things that he contributed to video gaming, a hobby that we all love. He didn't really have the best life as far as the notoriety, and he had some financial troubles there. The house burnt down a few years ago, so he had some difficulties, and it's just it's kind of unfortunate. Guy did amazing work, and like you said, it would be nice that he gets some recognition while he's still alive.
Right on. Well, hey, to all of our listeners out there, if you know anybody, if you have any influence, if you have any connections, if you do your own podcast, we know many of our listeners do, let's start getting the word out there, post it on the forums, the Facebook gaming sites, let's get the word out there about Ted and, get his name to the prominence it deserves, before he passes away. So anyway, that's a big one for us that we wanted to make sure we discussed. So leading off into the first news item here, I have got one submitted by Spinal, and it says, "Hi guys, I was Googling around to see if anyone had shrank a Wii in some way and stumbled across this interesting handheld. A crazy nut job has managed to trim the Wii down to fit inside a Game Boy shell along with batteries and controller parts. I sure wish I have the nerve to try this." Well, Spinal, I mean, just try it. I mean, what's the worst going to happen? But no, if you take a look at no other link in this month's news, man, this is the one you got to see. This guy did some surgery. So the photo that's in the article shows sort of the cuts that have been done on the Game Boy. I'm sorry, the Wii, to shrink it down. One was simply removing like all the ground planes and a couple connectors and all. And the other one was pretty radical trim, getting it down to the core chipset. They got rid of the power conditioning, the USBs. They got rid of the CD-ROM, DVD, the optical disc electronics, and sort of pared it down. And some of the power conditioning for the CPU, since it was going to receive good, stable DC power. And then this next cut the guy did radically shrunk this thing down to pretty much the core chipsets with just about a 1/4 inch of wiring around the edge. How he did his pickup points of getting like all the he cut out like all the power conditioning, which is fine because you're dealing with it. When you rectify AC power, okay, you take it from the plug and you use a switching power supply which synthesizes a AC voltage at a lower voltage, which is then, rectified into DC, you're still going to have some ripple, right? So you want to get rid of all that ripple. You need, a lot of capacitors, really clean up that power. He got rid of all that because he's running off battery. He got this thing down to an incredibly small size. Then what he did is he stuffed the thing inside of a full-size Game Boy case with 4 very large lithium batteries. He moved around the SD port, the NAND memory, all kinds of stuff. Just an incredible job at condensing it. He's got the battery charger in there, the batteries, the switches, the plugs, 2 speakers, a little bodge board of his own to sort of bridge things together, and a monitor pulling off of the HDMI. This is just incredible work. I mean, this is kind of like when you first saw Ben Heck do the 2600 portable. This is like that level plus some. So just amazing work there.
Yeah, it was insane. I read that one as it come in. Couldn't believe it. It's just unbelievable. So another micro handheld here, but this is slightly different. Build and code a retro handheld games console with this BBC Microbit add-on. Now, the Microbit is one of those single board computers, but it's really aimed at education level school children and to give them some sort of entry level Python stuff, or what's the other, blocks I think it's called, if you've used Scratch, where you have like lines of code and you drag and drop them into the right order and it does things. It's really only 25 LEDs on the main Microbit, but this one is an add-on board that it plugs into, and it's kind of like a PSP sort of format. You've got a D-pad on the left and you've got buttons on the right. I'm not sure how much gameplay you would actually get out of this because it is just a grid of LEDs, but it shows them here playing things like Pong and Snake, and it really is only entry level for school children learning how to program. So cool idea. I have got a Microbit, and if you see us at Revival coming up in May, you will see a Retrobit in the booth doing a little something that you'll just have to wait and find out, I'm afraid. So thank you, Dave Lanky, for that one. And one here from Kip, news item from Kip. Running BBS door games on Windows 10 through the Linux subsystem. Haven't looked at this. Let's paste it, make it a URL. I'll try and post these in live news chat as well, but I have to remove the bits from the beginning because it really doesn't like it, and it still doesn't like that one, even though links are allowed and I'm an admin. Gosh darn, I'll have a look when someone else is doing a story. But yes, this is indeed running a BBS door game system on Windows 10 with something called GameServe, DOSBox, and Telnet Fun with WSL. There's been a few BBS links lately and a few active BBSs cropping up, and some still knocking about from all those years ago. Another one from... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got one from Peter G. Peter G says, I don't own a Switch, but I do own and love a Red Tent. This could almost tip me over the edge and buy a Switch if I knew anyone else that had one and could think of a game I wanted to play with them. And he sends a link, and it is a accessory for the Nintendo Switch. It's basically a Japanese kind of cabinet-looking thing, like the old school 2-player Red Tents, I think they were called.
Yeah.
You got, and the article is actually written by Robert Workman. Cool guy. Used to write for Retro. It's an interesting little accessory. I would get one if I had.
I'm looking for it right now. I got to see this thing. Okay, I saved the search. I'll find it. Yeah, that does sound kind of cool, doesn't it? Got one here from Glixel. They sent it over. And I appreciate the submission, but man, do I have to take issue with this article. Because obviously it was written by somebody that, unless I'm grossly mistaken, well, okay, I can pretty much be certain of this, is not a fucking veteran and never served in the military and never went to war. If so, I retract my statement and apologize profusely and simply say that we differ and he must have not been in the Army. So it's an article in Rolling Stone, which, you know, if you run out of toilet paper and you're forced to use Rolling Stone, you know, it's a little rough, but that's about its only value. It says here, World War II games become a vital history lesson as Greatest Generation dies out. Okay. No. The Greatest Generation, the World War II veterans, yes, they are dying at a rapid rate. They will be gone soon. They're still fucking alive. I just went up and visited some, okay? Our motorcycle club, we got on our bikes, and it was snowing, because that's how we do. And we went up to the Martinsburg, West Virginia Veterans Home. We brought them, you know, toiletries, and the wives made cookies and other sweets and you know, prepackaged stuff too. We went up there, and we went and visited these guys. And there are a lot of Vietnam era guys in there, a lot of Korean era guys in there, and fewer World War II veterans, as always. But they're still alive, and you can still go visit them and speak to them. There is a tremendous amount of World War II, you know, came at a point where film and radio was well established. Pardon me. Much of World War II was captured in film. Years later, you know, just a few years later, television came about, you know, all this stuff. There are so many first-hand interviews of World War II veterans out there. If you want to know, okay, what was it like to fly, you know, a B-17 on, you know, the moments before the ships landed, you know, at D-Day, you can go to YouTube and you can search that out. If you want to know what it was like to be a ranger climbing up the cliffs, you know, while the Germans were dumping down machine gun fire on you, you can go watch dozens upon dozens of interviews. There was a great TV series done called Band of Brothers and the Pacific. And if you go and watch the last, I think it's the last episode, is nothing but interviews with the actual men that were featured in the TV show. And this was done like in the 90s, so they were still, you know, fairly spry compared to today. I mean, I grew up with World War II veterans. They were just our grandparents, you know. They were just recently retiring. They were buying mobile homes and driving around the country and, you know, seeing things and going to Florida for the winter. You know, they still went to air shows. You know, you still got to see them flying World War II era aircraft. And, you know, you talk to these guys and you heard their stories. Video games, I mean, first of all, I've expressed my problems I have with modern FPSs. I just am not comfortable, and that does not lead to censorship or any suggestion they shouldn't make them. I'm not okay with, you know, playing a game with, you know, current uniform U.S. soldiers in it, you know. They're grossly inaccurate compared to the actual experience of being in the military. And you know, I wasn't in World War II. I wasn't there. But knowing what I know of how little things change over time and how common that, you know, experience is, I can say that these games of World War II are probably grossly inaccurate as the ones are about modern day warfare. And number one, there is no respawning. So I have to call Bravo Sierra on this. Video games are not a vital history lesson. They are not at all that. So I would say if you want to find out, you know, about World War II, watch the firsthand videos filmed during the actual war. Get out there, you know, go to your local, find out where your local veterans hospital is. Call the community coordinator and say, hi, I'd like to come by and bring some cookies, and they'll tell you what the rules and procedures are. Drive out there and go talk to the guy that did it, Don't play goddamn, World War II Battlefield Special Edition, Call of Duty, Elite Criterion, Hit the Beaches, Steam Edition. And that's all I have to say about the war. What was it before Gump says? That's all I have to say about the war in Vietnam.
Yeah. Those series you mentioned, though, they are great. Band of Brothers, The Pacific, and I would also check out, it's a much bigger time investment, but there are 26 episodes of The War in Colour, narrated by Laurence Olivier. That's the one you want for the Second World War. Wonderful, wonderful series. Lots of footage from all the different battles, the people involved, and, as the name suggests, in colour. So, Atari have been in the news this month again, for a few reasons, and not the Atari box. So this one, the first one that came in was from Spinal, and it is Atari going to crowdfunding to start, I almost said kickstart, but it isn't, to start a fundraising for a port of Roller Coaster Tycoon, for which they own the rights, to the Nintendo Switch. So they did this on startengine.com. And
wow, I guess they recorded for months.
They must have been courted, yeah.
Yeah.
So they wanted $10,000 to do it. They've raised 10,000. What is it? They've got a 1.07
of one.
Yeah, of a $1.07 million goal. They're currently on, I think, 47,000 or something like that, with 95 investors. But there's plenty of time to go for your help to help them to get to that mill. So, yeah.
This kind of reminds me of David Crane's Jungle Adventure. 10,000 out of $2.2 million raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, but wait. You're leaving out a key point of this crowdfunding. The fact that it's a hybrid where you can actually become an owner of the proceeds. So you get a distribution if you fund this.
How does that work? Do we know?
Not sure exactly, but basically,
I'm kind of reading it here.
You become an entrepreneur by investing in it, and then after they launch it, any kind of profits, they do a profit share split with the individual owners, which is kind of interesting. Hey, if it was a great game, but doesn't look like people are really jumping on board with this thing.
No, it seems like a Kickstarter with profit share.
Yeah, essentially. I never really got into the whole roller coaster tycoon thing personally. How about you guys?
Not so much. No. I'm reading the numbers here, okay? So $250 minimum investment. $250 minimum investment. And okay, all investors, you'll host an investor's site online. For $750, you get that plus discount of 25% off the street price. And for at least $1,500 investment, you get both of those perks and one free copy of the regular edition of the Book of Atari. Now, I mean, how can you pass that up? One free copy of the regular edition. Of the book, The Art of Atari, which is a cool book, but I mean, I just don't. Atari is, I guess, once that crowdfunding bug bites, man, you're addicted.
Yeah,
and they got 3.6 million right now. So I don't know what number you said, Mike. I think you're off by a bit, though.
Well, if you look right here on the fundraiser, it says that they've raised $47,808 of $1.07 million.
Yeah, that's what it says there.
You need to go to Start Engine. They've raised 3.6 million of.
I'm on Start Engine / Atari - Game - Partners. That's what I'm looking at now. 56 days left, 95 investors, $47,888 raised. of 10,000 to 1.07 million gold, whatever that double figure there means.
Oh, I'm on the wrong damn page.
Oh,
you're right.
God damn.
I'm wrong.
So now do the numbers bring it into focus?
Yeah, so 40 looks like 47,000 out of a $1.07 million gold. Not so good.
Not so good. Not so good.
That's so good.
So they also got in the news this month for starting or investing in their own cryptocurrency. It's just like it's not Atari, but the people who own the name Atari are just trying to raise money any and every way they can, no matter what it does to the reputation, whether it's to do with gaming or not, they don't seem to care.
Hey,
seems familiar.
A quick update on my Bitcoin. So the original $16,473 investment is gone up, and now it's one Bitcoin is worth $10,394 as of right now. Yeah, so got a ways to go still, but you know what? I don't hate Atari or the people that own Atari for trying some unconventional things. You know, I don't hate them for trying the crowdfunding, the start engine thing to try to get this game going. I think it's an interesting concept. Maybe not the right game to choose. You know, they've been putting out some interesting things, like the cryptocurrency just seems bizarre, but I mean, I don't hate them for doing it. You know, how about you guys?
No, I just think the behavior and the way they've been sort of portraying themselves and the whole shenanigans with the Atari box, it's just like the name is just not worth anything, and they're just trying to turn a buck. It's the same as you know, the other IP squatters we've talked about before. You know, Coleco started out with the trust of the industry to some degree, and then all of that went to shit, and then they started, you know, well, you can't use the artwork for Coleco. We own that, and that's ours. And it's just anything to try and make a buck or protect what little investment that name is now worth. And I think it's just the whole...
How about taking some of this money and time and effort and hiring developers and industrial design experts and production managers and producing a product, I'm using air quotes here, a product that people find desirable, producing this product, and then taking profit from the sale of said product. Maybe try that. Go back to basics.
Yeah. That might work.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is if you look at their team or the Atari management team, these guys are known for mergers and acquisitions, right? They're not known for their love of video games, and I think you got to love what you do. That's the secret sauce that keeps companies going. You know, I have no doubt that if another major publisher did this, you know, let's say Sega wanted to start engine one of their old IPs like Golden Axe or Shinobi or something, I mean, people would line up in droves, I'm guessing, to do it. You know, if they wanted to do their own their Sega cryptocurrency, I think people would do it.
Sonic coin.
Yeah. I mean, shit, I'd buy a couple just for the novelty, right? But this...
Well, it have to be Sonic rings. Or if Nintendo did Mario coin. You know?
Yeah, rings. Yeah, the rings.
If Nintendo today did Mario coin, I could see that being a thing. Because they're still actually making product people will buy when it's available.
I mean, they're selling cardboard. People are buying.
Yeah, they're selling cardboard, okay, for money.
Sell cardboard to kids for 80 quid.
What's amazing, and this relates to I'll lead into our next news story with this, is where you and I, you know, the adults in the situation, find the idea of buying cardboard for $80 to be fucking idiotic, and we won't do it. Some folks are doing it, okay? But what parents were bitching about in 1991 is even funnier. So in 1991, the SNES launch was arriving, and there was a video here that was put together by a TV station, and the news was submitted here by Chris Leithco. And he says, "Well, this is some ancient news, but very interesting. The video shows outraged parents angry over the release of the SNES console. Their anger stems from the fact that they had just gotten NES and are now being asked to pay $200 for a new system." Okay. Now, as you know, the NES was designed like 82, what was it, 82, 83, sold in Japan as the Famicom, brought to the U.S. super limited in 85, generally available in 86. And, so we're talking about almost a 10-year-old system by 1991, and Nintendo comes along with the SNES. As we know, very different design, not a radical departure in hardware, but designed to do something radical, and that was use additional processors and memory and stuff on cartridges to create a next generation worth of games, which they did. The SNES had radically different games than the NES, and it was a huge hit, okay? So in this newscast, it starts off with a therapy session for families talking about having to buy a new Nintendo system. And they're going to, but we just bought one, and now there's this new one. And so they show this this therapy session, which is idiocy. Then they go through probably using a Commodore Amiga, a little bit of video trickery, and they minimize the reporter down to where he's riding in a Mario Kart car. And then they go to this beauty here. This bushy-eyebrowed, shovel-chinned, mouth-breathing moron, a little bit of a pug nose too, is standing in an aisle next to a bunch of toys. Actually, it's a bunch of those little learning laptops that were a big thing around the time. And this raging beauty is explaining how she's not going to buy one for her kid. She's not going to do that, no. She says, no, I'm going to say no. I'm going to, and let me get this plain here so I can read the rest of it. I'm going to say no. I'm going to explain to him how people market things to make you spend more money. Nintendo controls 80% of the video game market, blah, blah. I'm sure that stunning lecture is going to be nearly as good as sitting down and playing Super Mario World. Nearly as good. So this bag of fun here, instead of bringing home the SNES, brought home a lecture.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. There's another SNES-related one.
She was from later stabbed to death.
Probably. Another SNES-related one from Chris Leithco, and it's people enhancing audio in SNES games using the MSU-1 chip, which is a chip that is featured in some SNES games. It's in the cartridge, like Yoshi's Island, Super R-Type, Pilot Wings, etc., etc., and people are using that. Somehow, I can't see in this article how, but they are converting what I'm assuming is analog audio into digital audio. Whether they're soldering pins or they've got an interface, it doesn't say here, but they're remixing lots of tunes to digital, so yeah, something to do if you've got the time, I guess.
Oh, I found a programmer's guide for it. It's way too long to even read and begin to translate here on the air, but it's out there.
Yeah.
It's an audio processor chip is what it is. So.
Right. One here from George Lutz. Surprisingly not sexual, this one. Video games addiction is now a chronic disease. And that seems to be about it. I can't see a link there. But I guess somebody somewhere has diagnosed it as a chronic disease. And Tamagotchis are coming back. This one sent in by me. An article on the BBC. I shall paste it into live chat. We got a few more watching again this month. And will it let me paste it? Won't it? It's always interesting to find out. Yes, it will. So Tamagotchis are coming back. That means more parents are looking after them while the kids are at school.
I'm reading one here that honestly has me somewhat befuddled. And even Neil nailed it. Neil Purcell submitted here. I don't even know how to comment on this. And Neil, I might be in the same boat. It's from Business Insider, and it says the GDC, Gamers Development Conference, if I recall correctly, the GDC Pioneer Award revoked. And it says Atari co-founder and prominent video game industry icon Nolan Bushnell is well known for having helped create Pong. Well, we all know that that was pretty much Al Alcorn, had Ted Essenbach. He was a business partner. He was involved in marketing. Okay, I'll give him that. Bushnell was scheduled to receive a Pioneer Award at the prestigious Gamers Developers Choice Awards this March at the annual Gamers Developers Conference. That award has now been rescinded amid backlash to the choice. Rather than Bushnell, there will be no recipient this year. Instead, the award will be dedicated to honoring the pioneering and unheard voices of the past. Interesting. So the article continues. So what happens? As Kotaku's Celia De Anastasio highlights, Bushnell has had a long history of unsavory professional contact, specifically with female subordinates. Bushnell also gave Pong the code name Darlene after a woman at the company who he said in Playboy was stacked and had the tiniest waist. Some ladies feel comfortable around me and some don't, Bushnell told the Chronicle at the time. I find the aura of power and money is very intimidating to an awful number of girls. In response to these widely circulated stories, some users create the hashtag Not Nolan. So the social justice warriors are alive. I thought for some reason this could have led to Dabney not getting right. No, it's social justice warriors on the move. So yeah. Nolan not trying to stand up in front of the withering machine gun fire of angry Twitter users has said, okay, sounds good, I'm out,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can't, whether or not he wins the award, right, you can't take away from what the guy actually did.
Nope.
And, it would be revisionist history to try to say he didn't do what he did. So, speaking of things being stripped, we had a couple this month. I think we could kind of loop a lot of these together, between Todd Rogers, Billy Mitchell. There's been a lot of questions as far as some of their original goals. A lot of people disputed the dragster. I think that was originally Ben Heck did a video basically proving that it was mathematically impossible for Todd Rogers to get the score that he did on Dragster, which is kind of a stupid game in my opinion. But they've gone back and started looking with a microscope at some of these other scores from some of these gamers, from early days of Twin Galaxies, and basically they've realized a lot of these original scores are just kind of bogus or unachievable. I actually spoke with Todd Rogers, trying to get him to come to CG 2014 as a guest. Yep. He was a pretty interesting character. I'll just say from my own interactions with Todd, I probably spoke to him on 3 different occasions, trying to get him to come out to CGE, and he acted like he was a celebrity, like a big-time celebrity. He wanted us to pay for his plane tickets, his hotel rooms, all his meals. I think he had, I'm not 100% sure, but if memory serves correct, I think he was asking to bring a friend or something and have that person paid for as well. And we just didn't have money. Now, there was definitely some rooms that may have been available for some of the alumni to come, but we certainly weren't going to pay for his airfare and everything else.
No, I remember this discussion pretty clearly, and it was one of those deals where, like, Todd, you've been to CG a number of times. I've talked to him at CG many times. We played we played a lot of what do you call it? The tournaments, where we'd have, Todd would go up and, hey, challenge Todd Rogers at whatever. And Todd usually came out the better. I mean, he was good. Not, again, I think a lot of this needs to settle out and be sorted. Because there may be a human component of it that defies, what the game could or should do. Or I don't know. There may be a bug exploit. We don't know. But certainly some things have been proven to be sketchy. And there's a lot of smoke, around this. I think too much to be ignored. But yeah, I mean, to, basically come out and say, hey, I need to be brought up there. I need this. And we're not doing that for, the two guys that co-founded Activision, But yeah, I get that.
He was very polite. Very engaging, interesting guy to talk to. Very professional.
Great fun to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he had some great stories. He was a cool guy, but yeah, I mean, I just thought he had some pretty wild asks as far as what he wanted to show up to the show, and I hadn't really worked with some of these guys before, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. But I remember speaking to him and just thinking, like, damn, dude, that's a lot to be asking. You're not like I don't know. It was pretty insane. It was like, I need almost on par with, like, I need the bowl full of 1,000 blue M&Ms or something.
I'll send my rider along.
Yeah. We're kind of late to the story on this because of when it came out. It wasn't long after live news that we did it, so it's been discussed 1,000 times, some of the ins and outs of it. But Chris Lethko wrote a great blog article about it on our blog. If you go to retrogamingroundup.com/blog, it's currently the latest post. You'll see it there. But basically, yeah, Ben Heck took apart a 2600 and wired it up so that the game would play through on game cycles. So it would put in all the possible inputs on each game cycle, and the quickest that the Atari 2600 and the game could actually do it is 5.57, and if you look on Twin Galaxies, or if you looked then anyway, there were a few people did 5.57 and then Todd out on 5.51. But there were others as well where games would only score in 50s and 100s, and he'd put in a score that ended in 80, things like that. Barnstorming was a good one. In Barnstorming, you're flying from left to right, and you've got to avoid things and fly through the barns, and every time you maneuver your aeroplane, whether you go up or down, you kind of lose a bit of speed, and so the more you're adjusting your position, the more speed you lose. And so they took out all the obstacles from Barnstorming and flew straight without any loss of speed, and still couldn't beat Todd's claim time. There are others as well. I mean, we're just picking on Todd, but then it turned out that Billy Mitchell, the score that he'd put in for the King of Kong, it was actually pulled from a MAME output, not an original machine output, as he said. And his game seemed to feature more of the blue barrels than anyone else's game. And they are, of course, worth more points than the normal barrels. So, Todd's not the only cheat, and, he has been witnessed playing games live, as Scott says. He is good at them, just maybe not as good as he claims. Same with Billy Mitchell. There's no doubt Billy Mitchell can kick Pac-Man's ass and Donkey Kong's ass too, but, maybe not with the consistency that he'd like to claim. So, at this point, does Twin Galaxies have any credibility left as a kind of premier internet site for high scores?
Well, I mean, I think their credibility, there's some issues with a couple of the people that got caught, with various shenanigans. But I knew many of the Twin Galaxy guys when Twin Galaxy was still, its original thing,
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've met Walter, but there's no reason to doubt Walter's integrity. He seems a straight-up guy, and he was trying to promote his site and do the best he could. And when a character like Billy Mitchell comes along that's quite marketable, he's going to seize that. But, it's...
And remember, before Twin Galaxies was ever a site or online presence, it was a book. I mean, it was a handcrafted scoreboard, that was printed. I mean, it went back to the day. And you look at like the U.S. video game team with, him at the helm. I mean, it was a thing. So, yeah, did those guys actually go to compete in video games? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of real stuff to this. And I'm willing to concede, that there may be games where, and like you look at, like, say, Computer Space, right? First arcade game, mass production, co-op video game ever. You get into the scoring of it, it's limited by the way that the counting is done. So there is a point at which you actually get characters in gibberish in I forget which on-screen display it is, whether it's time or score or what, but you actually get this gibberish because it's still counting up. Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, I think there's something in that where, if you get over a certain number of things, it just turns into symbols and all. There are weird behaviors in games, and I'm willing to say that there are some of these games that they're calling BS on. Maybe it's not possible as you do it, but let's say, for example, there's a nonsensical input like, hitting the back button for one split second at a certain point causes a buffer overflow and doubles the score in Dragster. Something that isn't necessarily repeatable by a machine unless you follow that human input. So, there's more to it than that. But a great many of these things have proven to be absolutely bogus. That's not to say everything Twin Galaxies ever did is bogus.
No. Just some of it.
Oh, certainly. I just think it's important not to throw the baby out with the bathwater,
Mm-hmm.
Got one here from Mr. Mike James. They're announcing a Super Mario Brothers film. Now, that already happened. 1993, man. Bob Hoskins played the plumber Mario, and his plumber brother Luigi was John Leguizamo. And I cannot remember the girl that played Princess Daisy, one of the more attractive female stars at the time. And I thought it was a pretty good. It was campy, it was silly, but come on, remember it's based on a plumber who ended up in a magic mushroom kingdom with fireballs and mushrooms walking around and dragons, and I mean the premise, you eat a mushroom and you double in size, and so that's the starting point. The movie's gonna have to be a little campy, and I actually really, really, really liked it. So I don't think we should ignore that. So this new one is being produced by Illumination Entertainment, who did Despicable Me, Dr. Seuss, and Minions. All right, that's a pretty big hitter. If they did, I know Dr. Seuss was okay, but Despicable Me and Minions, not my kind of film. Can't say I've seen them. You cannot ignore the success and omnipresence of that freaking title, So yeah, it's pretty badass. What do you guys think? Super Mario film? Obviously we're going to see it.
Yeah, and this is animated rather than the live action. The first one was all right at the time. I wouldn't really
I liked it.
Enjoy it these days, but I've been back and watched it again. But I think they'll do a decent job with an animated one. I look forward to seeing it.
I can't remember. Did you mention that it's linked to the studio that's doing the Minions?
Yes,
yeah.
Scott
did
the
Minion stuff. Yeah. So they were. Some of them are. Despicable Me stuff's been alright. I think the Minions themselves are pretty much garbage characters the way they've been used and exploited.
But they're everywhere, and people love it.
Yeah.
Millions of little children would disagree with you. I think as long as they dump enough money onto this thing in marketing, it's gonna do fine. Look, any of these movies that come out animated, even ones that are biblical in nature, people line up in droves and go see it, because when you're a parent, you're always looking for the next crap to watch with your kids, because children watch movies differently than adults. They will watch the same damn movie 1,000 times, so you're just looking for the next thing because you're tired of seeing the ones the kids already have. It's like, God, can they just put something new out so I don't have to watch Despicable Me 3 for the 80th time this month. Oh, new one came out, pick it up. You know what I mean?
I didn't even have kids, and there was a point where I was at uni. One of the guys I did a lot of projects with was a fair bit older. Had 2 kids at the time. Like, I don't have kids, but I still went through a period of my life where I watched Finding Nemo at least twice a day, just because his kids are just like, it'd just be on repeat. They just let the DVD just go round and round and round, and they will just sit. Yeah, like I say, kids will just sit and watch it. And I've just been scanning through the news, and I haven't seen it, but recently there's the Paramount have come out and said that they're making a Sonic sort of mixed live action and animated film as well. So it's the hot thing at the moment, I guess, to take the classic mascot franchise and announce that you're making your film.
I didn't know that. It'd be interesting to see the Sonic Mario War again this time on the big screen.
Well, what would be weird is because it was the 2006 Sonic game, like the first sort of Xbox 360 one, which was a complete shit show of a game, but like that was really freaked people out big time, because there's a bit where Sonic ends up in like a human world interacting with humans but also kissing a human girl. And so then if there's this weird like live action and animated mix, is Sonic gonna actually kiss like real girls and stuff? Is it going to be a bit of a weird furry fetish movie? Subtly.
Well, and the thing is with children's movies, they have a very long tail, especially animated ones. I mean, they survive for decades and they're still popular, where, whatever the latest action movie is, a couple months later, no one really cares. They're on to the next thing. Kids movies, you could look at some of those Disney classics. I mean, they literally live on for decades, 50, 80, 100 years. I mean,
until they're banned.
Yeah. So, it's a good move to sort of, likely it's possible that the movie will outlive the game.
Very possibly. One here from Sheikah Arcades, I'm thinking it's pronounced, and they are producing what look to be very attractive Super Famicom and SNES controllers. Kind of fight stick layout with some different switches on there, and they've got some special coin inlaid into it, and they've laser cut a brand name onto it. Looks to have a real nice finish if you're in the market for an arcade stick.
Got one here that a couple people submitted. It's on my notes, and it looks like also Mike submitted. Stern has a game coming out, limited production, and this is a head scratcher. It's called Supreme.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it should have been called Simplistic. The cabinet art is white with the word Supreme in about the size of a bumper sticker. The back glass down to the play field has the word Supreme. So the S, the U, and the P are coming down the back glass. So SUP. Yeah, let's just call it the Stern SUP. SUP. The Stern SUP.
Stern SUP. So it's actually based on, the layout is based on the Spider-Man Home version. I don't know if that was a limited run and they're no longer making it, or why they felt the need to clone it. I don't know.
Well, they probably had, like with Family Guy, they put new artwork skin on it and changed it to Shrek.
Yeah.
Okay, same exact game.
Yeah.
My guess would be they probably had about a dozen of these things partially finished and said, let's try to do something super boutique, right? But with very, very small investment. Okay, I don't want anybody spending too much time on this. So they said, gotcha. So the Stern SUP is a very simplistic layout, very feature reduced. It kind of reminds me of the very sad time in pinball where pinball had it become sort of this self-affirming feedback loop where pinballs weren't selling as well, so they reduced the cost. So I'm thinking of games like game plan games, they removed more features. So then they didn't sell as well. So they removed more features. So you ended up with essentially a featureless game where the ball had a whole lot of blank real estate to play around on. And that's what I'm seeing here, is a whole lot of blank real estate. So they're going to make somewhere around 10. My guess, again, would be that they had about a dozen unfinished cabs, and retail will be around $8,000.
Yeah, but there's a market of people that will go insane for this. This will appeal to, this will be the gem that everybody, no one can get, that'll go out on some kind of show circuit that everybody will line up to play, even if it's a horrible game. Just the fact that they're only making 10 of them. I mean, there's just enough pinball enthusiasts out there that will declare like this is the must-play thing, whether or not it's any good. If
you're the guy that brings it to, Pin Expo in, Schenectady, New York, you're going to be the superhero of that show. I'm the guy. You'll probably be wearing a T-shirt that says Supreme on it. And you're like, yeah, I'm the guy that brought Supreme.
And on the back it says Sup.
That's just what you have on your business card.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Scott's right. They literally are selling off, shit they had lying around. They're selling off the white ones.
I mean, I that simplistic, minimalistic design appeals to me. I think this would look great in my home office, to be honest. I have it very minimalistic, so I think that it's cool looking. It's different, it's just radically different than what you're used to.
Yeah, they didn't include things like features or artwork.
Yeah. They've literally reinvented Bagatelle. Okay.
Hey, since we got Dave on here, I'd definitely like to get his 2 cents. I don't know, I think we overlooked this one. It was earlier in the year. The World Health Organization included gaming addiction in its international classification of diseases. Symptoms of the illness include prioritization of in-game achievement to the detriment of other aspects of a person's life, such as family or social ties, food, sleep, education, or work. It seems to mainly affect young men who tend to spend more time playing video games than women. The American Psychiatric Association also previously ruled there's not enough research yet to classify video game addiction as an illness, but they should recognize that it has negative impacts and continue studying it. What do you guys think?
I don't think that's negative impacts as so much as called a choice. Okay, let's say you're a kid in 1979. You got Space Invaders on your Atari 2600, okay? And somebody says, hey, Scott, Nathan's at the door. He wants to know if you want to go ride bikes. No, I'm trying to beat Space Invaders. You're just trying to up that score. No, I'm telling him I'm busy, right? You don't want to go ride bikes around the same neighborhood you've ridden bikes because you want to defeat that thing. Or let's say, your mom says, dinner's ready, and you're like, okay, let's see. I can go in there now, eat hamburger helper, get slapped in the back of the head for mouthing off, whatever it is that this dinner's about, or I can keep playing Space Invaders. Be there in a minute, Mom. Keep playing Space Invaders. Mm-hmm. Now, those are normal kids' choices. It's not new, and you could make that choice of anything.
Yeah, but you're talking about Space Invaders. Games today.
Well, I mean, so the thing sort of to go on with what Scott was saying, and I think where you're going is the way they've started to pitch this partway through is they're going, there's these typically males who are then sitting and playing loads of games, and they're thinking of like the guys who are sat just playing like, I don't know, Counter-Strike or PUBG or something, and playing that all evening, and like they come home from work and they play that and they don't interact with anyone apart from the online people, blah, blah, blah. These are people that are probably do something equally as solitary, maybe just masturbate, I don't know, something like that anyway. What I think is then what the start of it is what I think is actually the core of the problem is like the whole sort of mobile gaming scene and the way microtransactions work and the whole sort of way people are trying to make money is they've really sort of, they employ psychologists in various companies to actually tell them like, what triggers do we need to put in here to get people actually like trigger those dopamine receptors,
That's
and
why
get
people
them
are playing
addicted.
Candy Crush in a meeting.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's Candy Crush and stuff like that. It's not so much the the mid to late teenage male loser sat in his mum's basement sort of thing that's the problem of an actual addiction. It's like more they're putting in, and you're getting it with all the loot box controversy. This is all basically gambling, and it's all so engineered to work with with people's brains, and how everything, it's all been sort of really sort of engineered in a way to hook people in and get them addicted, and that's actually going to affect a wide range of people, because you've got people that just play say Candy Crush and bullshit like that on mobiles, and that covers every gender, every age, everything.
There were people doing crossword puzzles and Sudoku things when they should have been doing homework. It's just a different thing.
Possibly not as, because there's not the same reward loop with that sort of thing. Yeah, you'll get, you do get a satisfaction from completing a crossword or a Sudoku puzzle, but it's not, you've not got things constantly sort of flashing at you and just constantly sort of egging you on and gratifying you and pulling you along in the same ways.
Well, I gotta bounce here in a sec. So I'm just gonna make my concluding remarks on this. I think that we are into this ridiculous trend, and we have been for a while, of pathologizing everything. It's when we started putting the word phobia after everything you disagree with. Now, let's say I disagree with whatever the topic is. The people that do not want you to disagree, that want to use the force of law to compel you to not disagree, the people want to pathologize dissent. They are very keen to throw the word phobia after it. What if you have no fear of it whatsoever? You just simply don't agree. That doesn't exist as an option anymore. It has to be pathologized. You're, a phobic, or a denier, that word has been pinned on to just about any cause celeb you can think of, and you can look at things and have your own evidence conclusion, say, I disagree, and here's my rationale. Denier! Okay, next. It's a way to pathologize dissent and portray, disagreement as being somehow a disease. So we apply that. When I say we, the culture applies that to so many things, it's lost all meaning. Kind of like, I think, the concept of, calling someone a racist. That has been, they got into, microaggressions. Oh, if you do look at this person, or that could be a microaggression, it could be perceived as a micro-racist aggression. But if you don't look at this person, oh, you're guilty of the same thing. No matter what you do, you're guilty. Everything is racist. So when everything is racist, nothing's racist. It loses all meaning. And I think this is the same thing. We're into this zone now where everything is pathologized to the point that playing video games is now pathologized, So I think, it's lost all meaning. I don't think this is really any different than any other fad toy or engagement. I mean, when people were bringing those stupid Furbies to work, and, that was a big cry. It never ends. There's always, going back pre-video games, there's always something that people who disagree with it are going to pathologize. It went back to the radio. It went back to the telephone. There were newspaper articles written when the telephone was becoming available that this will destroy society. People will just sit on the phone and talk and won't go out anymore. The only thing I can say that I really, really agree with in all this is people texting while driving, is ridiculous. That should be a self, identifying thing of, hey, maybe I should actually look at the road in front of me versus not. But that's another matter. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter.
Well, I mean, to dovetail into that, earlier this month, a gamer was paralyzed from the waist down following a nonstop 20-hour gaming binge at a internet cafe in Shaoxing City, China. He wouldn't get away from the screen. His friends, told him, dude, you got to go. And next thing you know, he's carried out in a stretcher because he had nerve damage because his legs didn't work anymore.
That's some...
Always seems to happen in Asia. I don't know.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
They're just more dedicated.
Probably. I'm just going to type a message into chat to Chris Lethco. And I'm going to step away for 5 minutes, get a drink, etc., make a drink. We'd done the top 10 previous to this, and now we rolled straight into live news, which means I didn't get a break, but I'll take one shortly and leave it in your capable. But just before I do, I'll cover this one from Spinal, who sent me a picture of an elephant in the room. Spinal, it's done for comic effect, but not at your expense, hopefully. So, anyway, he sent us a news pic, and it is an animated pixel art LED frame thingy. It's a 64 by 32 RGB LED matrix, powered by an Arduino Mega, and it reads animations directly from an SD card. Not much else to say about it, so I won't, but it's a pretty cool little sign. You could see this going in your home arcade. It is, bright colour LED animation. He's got Mario running on this one, and no doubt you can design your own animations. Maybe there's some way you could download them and edit them, I don't know, but pretty cool item nonetheless, so thanks Spinal for that.
Awesome. I'm going to take one that was sent in by Mike James then, while Mike James is off getting a break, seeing as I've had a little mini break.
You have?
I have. This is a Kickstarter this has piqued my interest because it's called Jaguar USB. And this is an open source device allowing Atari Jaguar controllers to be used as a standard USB gamepad. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong.
Why?
Yeah, Mark, you've surely played an Atari Jaguar.
Yes.
This has got I'm probably one of the only people that feels that the actual overall shape and fit of it is kind of comfortable in my hand, but
You are.
it feels extremely light and cheap and plasticky, because it is. The D-pad is horribly mushy. The main action buttons are horribly mushy. The keypad is just a bit weird, and I mean, they're probably the most responsive of all the buttons, but they're in a strange place, and then you don't know what any of them are without the overlays, and then you don't really have time to look at them in-game anyway, so you might as well just memorize what they are and do them without. But yeah, why would you ever want to necessarily do this? Because, I mean, there's not even particularly great Jaguar emulators last time I was kind of trying to play with them. So
Well, the goal was $150. They've received $254 with 65 hours left to go. So this will be over by the time you hear news. So maybe it's just his buddy that wanted him to make one, and he wasn't sure if he'd get the money, so he went ahead and did a Kickstarter on it. I have no idea. I am no fan of the Atari Jaguar. I'd be hard pressed to tell you any game that I want to play on the system.
well, I mean, I used to keep one around for Tempest 2000 mainly.
Other than Tempest.
But as soon as TXK was released, that essentially, just did everything that I needed a Tempest game to do in that style. And so, it was then my Jaguar was kind of redundant. I had a couple of other games, but the cost that the games and the Jaguar were going for at that point on eBay, it just made more sense to just just sell it and get rid and just be happy with TXK. I mean, yeah, I mean, like even if you were emulating a lot of Jaguar games, I think you'd be better off with any pad that's got at least 3 buttons and a D-pad, and then the number pad you can map to the actual PC keyboard for all the good it's probably going to do. I don't think it was used that much. It was like in Tempest, it sort of changes the viewpoint, the camera. I think you had to use it to strafe in Alien vs Predator, which was never pleasant anyway. So you're better off mapping that to like the shoulder bumpers on an Xbox 360 pad or something if you're emulating. Yeah, very strange. Like, I can see people making it as like an Arduino project or something. But yeah, to someone, I mean, it's not been the greatest of successful Kickstarters. It wasn't asking for much in the first place. They kind of must know their audience. But yeah, it just seems weird that there's even some demand for it. Although I suppose looking at that, it's actually only 7 backers that have made that successful.
Yeah.
So I don't know how the maths works on that. 7 times $30, yeah, $210. All right. So there's 7 people in the world that are bothered. Fair enough. They're going to get what they want, I suppose. I always wanted someone else to make, because I could never figure it out, a Maple bus interface for USB, so you can use Dreamcast stuff with USB that would allow you to use a mouse and keyboard on a PC, basically, just because I had a ton of Dreamcast keyboards knocking about, and my boss at the time would have absolutely hated it if I was using a Dreamcast keyboard day to day on my work PC, because he just seemed to have some issue with it. So yeah, I really wanted, if something like that was available, I probably would have bought it at that time. So yeah, fair enough.
Well, It will be available to those 7 backers. Spinal sent one in here. Just a thought, everyone should know that there's an excellent looking C64 game released recently called Sam's Journey. It's available on disc, cart, or digital download. More details here. Are you a fan of the C64?
Yeah, I've not I've owned one on and off for the last 20 years or whatever it is now, but not really sat and played one a lot. I used to go around. I had 2 friends with C64s that I'd go and play on theirs. Between I say probably once a month I'd be a weekend at one of their houses playing on stuff, but never had one myself to get into. And it was always a machine that since it's been retro, that I've always thought I'd actually quite like to sit down and learn to program a C64 game and make something on it, but never got around to it.
So long story short, yes.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm super passionate about C64, but it's certainly as a platform, it's got a lot of decent stuff on it that I will play from time to time.
Well, this game looks interesting. It's a classic 8-bit platform action game. Kind of looks like it has an overworld map similar to Super Mario World. The box comes with a little map, a couple cards, some little goodies, and a treasure box. So cool little package. C64 guys out there, if you didn't know about it, now you do.
Yeah, nice. Okay, it's always weird. How I always thought of C64 as very much a tape-based device, and then it was only quite recently in the grand scheme of things with the retro scene that people were making stuff on cartridges as homebrew, and then you had a lot more contact with a lot more Americans talking about it, and it was you realize that a lot of their stuff was is mostly disc based, and some cartridges and stuff, and then it just seems like it was a very UK centric thing, that this was all very it was still a very tape based machine for us, I think, over here. At least to me it feels like it.
Mike sent one in, the best retro games of 2017. This is published on Racket Boy. Let's see. I'll just kind of run down this list a little bit. These are basically retro-inspired modern games. Racket Boy is a good site, and the guy that started, his name's escaping me right now. Good dude. Sorry, I forget your name. We've talked several times. But anyway, running through the list, Cuphead, available on Xbox and Windows. Have you played that one, Dave?
I've not yet. It's definitely high up on my list because I love the animation style. And, a challenging shooter is also right up my alley. It's just I've kind of had it on my Steam wish list and waiting for a sale, really.
Yeah, I don't...
don't have enough time to pay full price for it at the moment, so just waiting it out.
I would own it today if I had the ability to play it on console. I only have a PlayStation 4, and I run Windows through a partition on my MacBook Pro, and I don't really like the game on it. So as soon as it's available on PS4, I mean, I would love to play this on Switch. I think that would be cool. I don't know if it's capable of, has enough horsepower to run it, but some of the other games on the list, Sonic Mania, you played that one?
I've not played that either. That was a big one for us. Seeing, being as I work with, I'm still in contact with a lot of people that worked at Sumo, and so we were very entrenched in Sega, and a lot of Sega fans in there. Like, I went through a thing a couple of years ago where I realised that actually I don't think I really liked Sonic that much. I played a hell of a lot of Sonic 2, and I always tried to play a lot of Sonic 1, but always sort of fell off it, and then Sonic 3 even less so, and CD as well. I was kind of like, and it was at this weird point where, so I needed stuff anyway to play on my Switch, but I was just kind of, I don't know, I kind of like what it's doing, and I really feel like I probably should like it, but then I just don't think I like Sonic gameplay all that much. I came to this realization and just sort of skipped it over.
Yeah, the last Sonic I had was Sonic 4 that they released in,
Oh, yeah.
That was terrible. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to love that so much on the Wii, but the jump was just off, and...
Yeah, the camera seemed, I don't know, it was almost like it was too zoomed in or something, and then there just seemed to be too many bottomless pits in levels, and it was too easy to get stuck.
Okay,
it just felt wrong.
Some of the other games, Stardew Valley, played that?
Again, not played. I'm a big Harvest Moon fan since the SNES. That's another one that I know I would play and sink hours into. It's just getting around to getting the time to do it.
Wonder Boy, Dragon's Trap.
I've got the original. Never been a great fan of it. Sort of the remix. I was always a bit sort of in two minds over it.
Tough customer here, Dave.
Yeah, never could decide whether I liked it or like the new style one or not. Like, and then it was I don't know, something about it just felt a bit off to me.
I have a feeling you have the next one on the list, Metroid: Samus Returns.
No, that is still on my Amazon wish list. I was hoping someone was going to buy it for my Christmas or birthday, but never did. My DS time. I know, my DS time, I've stuck in Fire Emblem Echoes. So this came along, and I was like, yeah, I'd quite like to play this. I was a bit skeptical about Mercury Steam being involved, but yeah, it's there. I will get it at some point and play it. But
Next Machina?
No, not played that yet. I think
Twin stick shooter.
House Smart for me and twin stick shooters. Like, I should like all of their stuff. It should, hit me, but something is just there's not something there that's compelling me to pick them up.
Blaster Master Zero, I picked that up. I actually haven't played it yet. When I get some time, I'll definitely dive into that. Big fan of the original. That game was definitely really cool on the NES when it came out. Nothing quite like it. Not sure why that never became a really well-known franchise. I guess maybe because, Hudson and had some troubles and stuff. Shovel Knight, Spectre of Torment. All the Shovel Knight games are pretty good.
Yeah.
Bye Box Boy. Have not played that.
Not played that one. Played the first Box Boy. It's quite a weird, interesting game.
Super Hydro. That looks like something I would enjoy. It's says following on the footsteps of the 80s and 90s big genre games like Gradius, R-Type, Darius. Looks pretty good. I'll probably have to pick that up.
Looks it's very Gradius.
Yeah.
I've not heard of it before, actually.
Blossom Tales, The Sleeping King. Looks like a dungeon crawler, Zelda type game. Mighty Gunvolt Burst. That looks like a Mega Man / Mighty Number 9 game. Super Mario Run, played that. How about you?
Yeah, wasn't keen on that.
I didn't like that.
No.
The Mummy Demastered.
that's one that I've been wanting to play. They wouldn't send me a review code, the bastards. Through much trying, but yeah, I'd want to get into that at some point. The whole Metroidvania thing, yeah.
Ruiner
intrigues me. Not heard of that before.
Matterfall.
No.
Shin Megami Tensei, Synchro Prologue.
Not familiar with that.
Hollow Knight.
I lost sort of SMT a long time ago. Hollow Knight I heard. I think I want to play that again. It's another one that's sort of on my Steam wish list.
Night Trap 25th Anniversary Edition.
Nah, I don't think.
I'd like to play through Night Trap again on a decent system. It doesn't emulate great. It's playable, but I don't know. I'd like to play through Night Trap again. I've never played through it all. Played bits and bats of it. But yeah, be interesting to go back and redo it, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so that was the list. Let us know if there was any new school retro games that didn't make the list that you guys think the listeners should hear about and play next year.
I just noticed in their other noteworthy games, there's of course, Pure Tetris, which is another game that we ended up playing again at Blackpool in the hotel room in the evening.
Yeah.
Which was turns out it's not a great game when you've had a few beers and your reaction times. No,
it's all about quick reactions, and we didn't have them.
And I'm not sure about there's some of the new Western voices in it are kind of cool with the nutrition, vitamins and stuff, but I'm not sure about. I think I still like the Tim Tadaishi Japanese voices better.
Definitely. Johnny Staples. Yeah. Like the original better. Did you do the Jaguar USB tap?
I did, yes. We wondered who that was for and realised it was for 7 people, which the 7 people that backed it, which seemed legit.
For some reason it isn't marked as red.
Is it not?
It is not. Did you do the ZX Vega court case?
That is the so this the one I sent in.
Let's have a look. It is indeed.
Mansu's over. Yeah, I was about to do that one.
Yeah. So this brings up an interesting question because the ZX Vega has been through lots of fallouts. It was crowdfunded, and was it Indiegogo? Yes, it was Indiegogo. It was crowdfunded on. And there were delays, there were fallouts with the team, there was all sorts of financial shenanigans, and some of the backers, at least one, took them to court in the UK because they hadn't delivered on their promised product. And the court in the south of England ruled that the contract was not, as the Vega team claimed, between the backers and Indiegogo. The contract is, in fact, between the backers and Retro Computers Limited. And if they don't deliver a product, then they're in deep shit. So they have to deliver a product, and they announced a date for later this year. Now, whether that will be a rushed-out thing that isn't finished just to meet their legal requirements, or whether it will be everything they promised, we've yet to find out. But it's an interesting legal decision. Probably not binding over there in the US, but I would expect a similar case with a crowdfunding campaign over there at some point. But yeah, if you crowdfund something, you got to deliver, baby.
What do you mean? The Vega Plus is the handheld one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there was the Vega that was just the sort of plug and play.
Yeah, sorry, this is the Vega Plus, the handheld version of it.
Did one of those come out yet?
I've seen them, but I'm not sure if they were early demos or what they were, with a few games, and they promised one with 1,000, but yeah.
Because I thought the standard Vega had come out, but no one really liked it. And then the Vega Plus, everyone was like, "Oh, actually, this is much better. This is what we actually, this will be a much better device if you pull through." And we've seen one, last year at Blackpool.
Which is the one that Butler is developing something for?
That's the Next.
The Spectrum Next.
Yeah. And we got to demo his game at Blackpool. His coder was there with the game running on his laptop. We got to play it. And I have to say, really like it. Random played it as well. And
Mr. Monkey Where's My Bananas?
Yeah. It is a real old school platformer, which is something that I like. There are some pixel precise jumps in there. And, you know, kind of like Jet Set, Willy Manic Miner, that kind of thing, where you know when, you know, one more step to the left will take you off a platform and your foot's kind of hanging off. It's got those kind of jumps in it, some interesting levels. We only played through a few of them. It's still obviously being worked on. The code is apparently a mess at the moment, but we'll get tidied up, obviously. But, yeah, it looks great and plays really well, so I am looking forward to that. So
yeah, the graphical style and the animation is really top-notch.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. It was a bit tricky for me to get used to playing such a precise platformer on a laptop keyboard on my knees. But yeah, really looking forward to seeing how that progresses. So next one here, one sent in by me, which is a story about the developer of the world's worst video game, Hong Kong 1997, ending his silence and talking about it to the South China Morning Post. This is a story about Yoshihisa Kurosawa of Japan, and he set out actually to make the worst game possible. And he is mystified by players that have taken it so seriously that 23 years on they bombard his Facebook page with questions. So you can read this whole, and it's all, it starts with Britain transferring sovereignty back to China and his sort of decisions to make this game for the Super Nintendo in 1995, and he just tries to make a really bad game, and they sort of liken it a lot to sort of the film The Room, which has come back into recent recent popular thing because of the release of the Disaster Report film that sort of talks about how that was made. And yeah, so it's a nice little article to read, just about how one guy decided to make a really shit game. And as someone who has made some stupid games, I can
surely not.
Possibly no one would say we're shit, but certainly stupid games for stupid reasons. That I can see why there's an appeal to just making dumb stuff for fun.
Yeah, there's been some games that one person's made, like Axiom Verge, by themselves, single-handedly, that turn out fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, obviously, yeah. But this is where he's just, he's gone out to... He just wanted to make something dumb and stupid and knew it was just dumb and stupid, but suddenly, this whole sort of cult of, followers grew up around it. And so, yeah, sort of took him by surprise, I think, about just how much people actually sort of appreciated it for being so bad it's good. Like The Room, which although that wasn't ever meant to be intentionally bad, that was him trying to make a really great film, but that's a different story on its own.
Kind of like Dragster. Shit game that took off.
Yeah.
Did you do the EA story?
Did not.
Okay, this is an article sent in by me. It's on heavy.com, not a site I've heard of. And it's studios EA has killed a history. In October of last year, they shut down Visceral Games, the studio that was most famous for bringing life to the Dead Space franchise. Franchise, I should say. While this news came as a shock to many, it's nothing new. This is just one in a long list of studios EA bought and then shut down over nearly 20 years. Here are all of them killed off by the publisher listed in order of the dates they were shut down. So, Bullfrog comes up first. Obviously, they were responsible for Populous, among other things. Westwood Studios, who did, let me see.
Command & Conquer.
Yeah. And Origin Systems, another big name, of course.
And obviously they've kept the name for their digital distribution platform.
They have, and I have to say, a little side note, Millie has started playing The Sims 4. Well, she started maybe last year, the year before. And each one of my kids has kind of grown up with an iteration of The Sims. So in the house I've got The Sims 1, 2, 3 and 4. And I have to say that 4, using the Origin kind of software, the launching thing, is just horrendous. You constantly have to keep going into hidden files and folders, deleting the Origin folder, relaunching the game. It re-downloads all the patches and updates, and then it will let you play. It's just an awful, awful bit of software. So Origin, sort your shit out.
Do they have that on console?
She plays it on PC. They do have Sims games on console, but I've asked her to go back to 3 or one of the earlier ones, or go back to Minecraft, which she used to play. But yeah, it's just
I feel
horrendous.
like towards the end of last year they released a Sims game on console, and it turned out that it was like, you know, a like 12-month-old PC, you know, the 12-month-old PC one that they'd only just got round to sort of consoleizing. So,
What was that? I think it was called Spore. That was the last EA game I played on a computer, and that had so many problems. That was the one that was supposed to be, you know, where you evolved your creatures. Did you guys play that one at all?
No, I did not.
I didn't play it, but I followed a lot of it because it was, you know, they soft launched early with the creature creator, and you could make all these weird penis monsters, and that was the big thing of it. And then the whole point of the game was, you know, it was almost a bit of like a Peter Molyneux sort of thing of like, you will take a bacteria and then you will grow and evolve it through years and years of evolution until it becomes its own unique creature. And it turned out that, you know, all these unique creatures that would go through evolutions were actually just sort of, you know, a randomization of 10 cookie cutter pieces and sort of mashed up, and some penis monsters.
So you can read the remaining ones on the list. The link will be in the show notes, of course, as always. The list of companies that EA has killed. Thanks, EA.
Yeah, they're not doing so well these days.
Yeah, the stock is down pretty significantly.
Yeah, it does not surprise me.
Star Wars didn't go well for them.
Maybe it isn't in the game.
No, you know what? Star Wars was actually one of the highest selling games last year. Oddly enough, I don't know if that's because of pack-ins or what, but
well, it still sold a lot. I just think that most people weren't aware of the shittiness of the loot boxes and that whole thing. You know, the mainstream consumer that's buying that kind of thing.
You know, I'll talk for Scott because he's not here, but he loves that game. He got a PlayStation 4 recently. You know, he said that's the one game that he really enjoys playing. I rented it because I had the first one and had so many issues with it that I thought I'll rent the second one before I make the dive. And sure enough, I had it the first weekend when there was all the you know, loot issues and stuff, and I played through the single player mode just to check it out. I want to say I got through it in a few hours. It wasn't that time consuming. It was pretty easy. And then I played online and immediately was going up against racist 12-year-olds with, you know, maxed out characters with, you know, flying laser mines and jetpacks and stuff. And I had like a little, you know, pistol, and it was just not fun to play at all. It was so asymmetrical, the power balance of what these guys had, that I just gave up on it. So yeah, I'm sure it's great for a single player game, but you know, it's like a lot of those online games, if you don't get in there from the beginning, you're playing against guys that are ranked up and maxed out, and you know, it's just no fun. Like, I would like to play Destiny too, but I don't have the time to invest in it right now, and I know it's not going to be any fun. Or playing Monster Hunter, you know, I'm going to go in there against a dragon with, like, you know, butter knife, and these guys have like laser arrows and stuff, so there's just no point.
Yeah, he did mention at the start of news he's been playing it, but he does play the single player.
Yeah, there you go. See?
Yeah, which a lot of people have been down on the campaign, but all right. One here from Random Dave. A dev diary from someone porting Prince of Persia to the BBC. BBC Master. There was a Prince of Persia port to the C64 a few years ago. That never came out originally.
which is pretty good. And we did discuss the game recently, of course. Great game, and one we need to go back and finish according to our top 10. So now you can do it on another platform.
AD's favourite platform.
Exactly. That's why I mentioned it, because it's AD's birthday. Happy birthday, AD.
I hope you're enjoying your coffee cups.
Yeah.
So I've got one here from Connor at Towards the Pantheon, and is let us know about his new game that's going onto Steam.
Which he tends to do every month.
Yeah. Just sort of flicking through, and I recognise the battle screen that's pictured, and it's like very Final Fantasy battle screen. And I was sort of also noticed there's like a cutscene image screenshot he's got in there. It looks kind of, I got a bit of a Monkey Island sort of warm feel. I sat around a campfire. So if you haven't checked that out on Steam, it's worth looking at. I think it looks like it could be pretty nice.
Something else worth looking at is this one, sent in by a big fan, signed Big Fan, Mike and Scott. Well, anyone else who's here as well. Here is an incredibly rare case study of a 1980s American video game developer, the newly created company Magic, and their first video game, Atlantis, from 1983. And this is a YouTube video, and it's called All in the Game, How a Video Game is Made.
I had 2 copies of that game. My aunt, I think, bought one for me, and then like another family member. And I think back then, like, parents didn't really pay attention to what you had. They're just like, oh, here you go, like, here's a new game, or here's a new action figure. And I had like 5 copies of the same IG-88 like robot from Star Wars toys. Like, they just gave you something and you're happy you had it. But yeah, I had two copies of that game, actually. Wasn't the best game, but
no, I've played it. One here from George Lutz, and this is more like George. This is a bit more sexual. I came across this story and it reminded me of the game Burger Time. How much money would it take for you to eat one of these? And what he's talking about is, as I knock the microphone out of the way, mesmerizing footage shows strange sausage-like worms dubbed penis fish that are eaten raw in South Korea, where we've just had the Winter Olympics, of course. How much would it take for you to eat one of these? Well, eaten raw, quite a bit, actually, I think. Although I do like sushi, these look rather odd. And I don't know what they taste like. But I'd probably do it for nothing, to be honest.
I did like sushi, and I don't mind putting phallic objects in my mouth. But seeing as I now don't consume anything of animal origin, I'm afraid I'd have to decline on ethical reasons. So...
Yeah. But if it was made out of soy, would that
oh yeah, a big soy wang, then yeah, totally.
Yeah. The thing that puts me off these is they live at the bottom of the sea and the bottom feeders, which generally means they taste like mud, which is why we don't eat dogfish and catfish too much.
There's something weird about the color there too.
Yeah, it's a bit too fleshy.
Yeah, like a fleshy pumpkin color or something. I don't know. Looks disgusting.
It does.
I've got one here from info@bittersoup.com.
I think I've just done that one.
Have you done that one?
Which was it?
About the iMagic.
Yes.
And I just like the where's the update on SoCal?
Yeah. Wait for the book. There'll be an update.
What was he selling last on eBay?
Laminated
stuff with his address on it. That was it.
Yeah, that's it. He was selling something and he had his address in clear display. So check out his eBay and you can send him a postcard.
Or anthrax.
Yeah. We don't encourage that. That's Random Dave at RetroGamingRoundup.com.
Melissa Merkel or something, or who's that one that Prince Harry's married? Did they send her anthrax or something over there?
Mega Mug. I think it was her and someone else. Oh, I can't remember who the other one was, but they sent them white powder, which I think turned out to be icing sugar or flour or something. But obviously they were scared it was anthrax, or hoping it was cocaine from Silk Road. But no, it just turned out to be something benign. It's a shame.
Here's one that looks.
That's what they're telling us.
Yeah, here's one that looks interesting. I don't know if you did it in my absence. Nintendo is bringing Mario Kart to smartphones. What do we think about that?
So that actually got discussed quite heavily in my little group, because there's a couple of guys that had worked on the Sonic All-Stars Racing mobile port, which was kind of an alright game if it wasn't for the fact that Sega stepped in and just plastered it with more adverts than a Gimpy Bomber 2. The thing was riddled and it was horrific. And, everyone was saying, you can't just do this. Like, every 5 seconds there's an advert. This is horrible. And they're like, no, we're going to make our money. This is how we're doing it. But the whole kind of auto steer, auto accelerate, tilt steer with a bit of assistance, it all kind of worked and was fun. And the latest Switch version of the Wii Mario Kart came out with the assisted steering and assisted acceleration modes, which everyone was kind of down on originally, but it does kind of help people when you're just using a shitty little tiny half a Joy-Con to try and get around. It can help. So that actually, when you think about the technology they worked on for that and apply that to a mobile game, it makes perfect sense, where you've got something that already auto-accelerates and brakes and assists you from crashing into the sides all the time. That's very much, applicable to a tilt system. So, the engine is there, essentially, the control scheme. Whether they'll make a decent game out of it, I don't know, because so far all of their mobile games have been pretty much failures, haven't they? I think.
Well, Pokemon Go.
Fine.
Pokemon Go, pretty good. Super Mario made a lot of money. I think it's theirs to screw up, to be honest. I think it's such a beloved franchise. I think it would be cool to kind of, move around your phone, use the accelerometers or gyros to kind of control, like you said, motion assisted. I think the graphics power is definitely there for most mobile phones at this point. But if they do some goofy Nintendo stuff where you have to always be connected, there's like tons of microtransactions. I think that's what turns people off. Like, I don't want a black hole that's always going to suck money out of me. I want to be able to buy a full experience. Make it $10. That's fine. $9.99. I'll buy the damn game. And if you need microtransactions on it, maybe you could buy extra, you get so many boosts a day and you could buy extra boosts or something. I don't know. Something that's not going to break the actual game or distort the record boards and stuff like that. But it's theirs to screw up, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there were failures. Obviously Pokemon Go, it's had a big drop off. I don't know whether it makes them money, but people still do play it. I think Fire Emblem was the one they've actually pulled in the most money from, but that actually disappointed a lot of Fire Emblem fans. Animal Crossing feels like it just failed to, that was the one that really should have suited a mobile platform.
Yeah.
And just seems to have just missed big time. They just sort of too aggressively did the whole time management mechanic on it, and kind of killed that off a bit, I think. And certainly from a gaming perspective, it feels like they've all kind of missed, they've missed and not, they've been sort of 6 or 7 out of 10s rather than a killer franchise.
You can already play Animal Crossing mobile anyway, on handhelds, but I guess you can with Mario Kart. But yeah, if it's done right, it'll go mega. If it's not, you're going to annoy people. For me, it'll be down to the controls, and I don't think the controls will be accurate enough for my clumsiness.
I think they'll get away with the controls. It's just whether it's with the way the controls are, whether it's like exciting to play, which, don't know. And what are they going to do multiplayer? Are they going to do that over 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think you can get away with just having AI, because the AI in Mario Kart these days is just, you know, it's too easy to start with, and then you get to 150cc and you can't stay in the lead because people just spam you with blue shells.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a bit of a random crapshoot at the end of it.
You know, to me, all their efforts so far feel like half-hearted. Like, they know they need to be in that space. The investors probably want them to be in that space, but they're not really fully engaged yet because they just have made some sort of bizarre decisions with some of the games they put out so far.
It's almost like they've gone, if we can sort of put this money aside for it and write it off as marketing for some of our franchises, and then, you know, and then that's the budget, and it's not quite enough budget to do the game quite properly, and they've not wanted to put the time and resources into, you know, polishing it fully as they perhaps should, but they don't mind because, hey, loads of people are now aware of Mario again, and we're about to release a Mario game. Loads of people are aware of Fire Emblem, and we've just released 2 Fire Emblem games. Not sure where Animal Crossing fell into that, because they don't seem to be doing much with Animal Crossing, but yeah.
I mean, I play plenty of platformers on my iPhone that, you know, they use sort of like the thumb pad area where you move that around, that acts as your D-pad. And the experience isn't going to be nearly as good, but there's a lot of old NES games that you would think they could just literally port the thing in a day and have it up on the App Store. You know, I mean, the original Super Mario Brothers, obviously it's not going to be the same fidelity of movement as you would get on an original platform system. But I think if they had Super Mario Brothers out there, they would make buckets of cash off of it. I mean, 99 cents, $2, whatever it is. Shit, I'd buy a copy of it. I think a lot of people listening to the show would too.
Would it be that cheap though? Like Virtual Console has taught us that constantly they will re-release the Mario original NES Mario Brothers for like $5.99, like on every platform, all the time.
Okay, make it $6. I'd still buy it. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. $6 for a badly playable touchscreen Mario isn't going to do it for me. I mean, just do it for £1. They would sell 5 times as many and make the same money. Seriously, they would.
There'd be some point where you're on a bathroom toilet stuck with diarrhea and you'd say, I feel like playing Super Mario Brothers. I don't care what it costs right now. Give it to me.
Give it to me.
I can see on it, like, thinking about that, I can see why they've gone, like, all right, we'll actually put some effort into making the, you know, not just dumping games out with an emulator like Sega kind of have with their stuff, their catalog, because, you know, especially on Android, but then to a degree with jailbreaking on iPhone, if you want to play Mario on a phone, you can, really. You know, okay, the average person probably wouldn't, but like, yeah, by making something a bit different, a bit more interesting, I can see what they did, and like my mate and his son, they fucking loved Mario Run. It just, to me, it wasn't a good Mario game, and it wasn't a good Endless Runner. It was kind of in this awkward place in between, and I could see sparks of cleverness in the mechanics, but just never enough for me to drop the investment on it that it was.
No. So, if you take a look at the...
I don't think they can sell it for 99 cents, so and then we can wrap up. In order to keep their catalog sort of a premium catalog of titles, you know, as soon as you go to the dollar bin, I mean, look at old Nintendo games. Very rarely ever hit a dollar bin, even years after the console has sort of hit its high point. I mean, you could go buy Wii games now, you know, proper Nintendo titles, and they still sell on Amazon or eBay for next to full retail price of what they were when they came out 6-7 years ago. You know, it's like proper Disney animation movies. They never really drop the price on them, or Mercedes-Benz. they come out with the next model, they don't go on sale. Same with Apple products, you know. And I think that Nintendo would start playing a dangerous game if they started pushing this thing out at 99 cents.
Oh well. So, speaking of Nintendo platformers, take a look at the animated GIF. I think we should all be doing that with our light switches.
I am not looking at the live page thinking about it.
So one here about the Super NT, which is, of course, Kevin Horton, etc., and their newly released Nintendo clone. It is a brand new FPGA system. We've heard that before, but it is, and it's real. And this particular article is on Polygon, but there are lots of interviews with the team all over the place on this. Lots of YouTube videos, you know, lots of reviews. Gamestraight1, Metal Jesus, all those kind of reviewers have touched on this and had demos and show you all through the menu system and the settings. But basically, this is billed as the ultimate Super Nintendo. You know, it will support modern peripherals. It will give you HDMI output, etc. Lots of different effects you can put on the audio, on the video, you know, to affect the scrolling, etc. And this is the purists at Super Nintendo.
Yeah, it's been there's been people, you know, doing side by side analysis. Digital Foundry did a good section on it, and sort of comparing it to Higan, which is the cycle accurate PC SNES emulator that, you know, needs a fast processor for obvious reasons to really sort of accurately do the SNES rather than do all the sort of speedy hacks. And yeah, it was quite interesting, sort of some of the things that were the problems on Higan that were also problems on the Analog NT, and then they did they sort of notify the NT, Analog, and very quickly they've been sort of issuing firmware updates and sort of fixing all these sort of issues and, you know, refining it further and further. So it's it's a constantly in development thing. It's it's quite an interesting thing. There's been a bit of a debate with us over what's better, getting a SNES and a FrameMeister, which, you know, a FrameMeister's useful for other things as well as just a SNES, or is it work, you know, for a little bit less but almost as much. You know, this is just a one SNES thing. It's not like the old Analog NT where there were the custom firmwares that would play other cores as yet anyway. But with Kevtris being now directly employed by Analog, you know, there's a lot of discussion over, is he going to be, are they going to allow him to release other cores, or is it just going to be a case of like, we've got him now, so what we're going to do is, rather than releasing more cores for the Super NT, we'll release a Mega Drive equivalent, and then we'll do just separate consoles, or will they, because he always wanted to make, one big FPGA Super everything emulator.
Coleco Chameleon?
Yeah, that was one of them.
Well, I mean, so interestingly, there's some unofficial firmware for the Super NT that came out, which does allow games to run off SD card. Obviously, this won't work with games that use DSP chips or, additional hardware in the cartridges, because that's not on the SD card and it's using a proper bus interface. But then also there's a lot of like mystery about who has released this firmware that allows, for this specific device, that allows the SD card to work. So it's kind of interesting. It's been, if anyone's got Giant Bomb Premium access, there's been, quite a bit of coverage from them, because Jeff Gersman's very interested in this sort of side of things. Been a lot of them sort of playing with both the unmodified and modified sort of side of it and getting a good deep dive into it. And so,
I mean, Dave, is there enough of a difference that the average player can tell a big difference between, this FPGA version that Kevtris has put together and something that
say so, like the Super NES Classic or something, or RetroPie. So I don't think anyone would really know, like the average person would notice that much between a SNES Classic and the Super NT. It is more the purists and that know about, what, like there's the classic one on the SNES Classic was Yoshi's Island, touch fuzzy, get dizzy, weird psychedelic screen effect that would flash and do some weird things with the background. And that wasn't right, but yeah, to the layman, that would be playable still. When you go to RetroPie, there's an element of some people with HDTVs that do have a lot of input lag. They will kind of notice that Mario World isn't playable as anywhere near as playable as it used to be because the lag just puts you off all the platforming. But once
that's with retro
with RetroPie on a Pi and emulation station that everyone's that's the other sort of like big thing that seems to be creeping into a more sort of mainstream and like my mate at work, he noticed it and his kid noticed that it wasn't really, didn't feel right, even though his kid had never ever played before on the real hardware. But once they sort of dialed in the TV settings and turned off all the bullshit processing, they got that to a point where they're more than happy with it now. I was talking to him the other day because I fell down a rabbit hole of looking at Raspberry Pi add-ons that do direct RGB SCART output over the GPIO, so there's like super low latency rather than going through the frame buffer and then the digital to analog converter and so on. And
so does it have to do with going through a TV, or would it be better if you ran it through like a computer monitor?
There's a mixture of things. So sort of everything with latency sort of builds up. So if you're using a Bluetooth controller, that will add 8 milliseconds. If you're on a Pi that's going to a CRT, you've got some latency because it's inherently a digital platform, and it outputs to a frame buffer and then sends that to the display. So that adds a delay that's not usually there, but then it has to go through a digital analog converter, then to the CRT, which will draw pretty much instantly. But sometimes when you're then going out the HDMI, it's even slower, even though you're missing the analog conversion. The CR, depending on your HDTV, that might have additional processing on the image that then adds another 30 to 60 milliseconds, which is, it all adds up to sort of 3 or 4 frames, maybe 5 frames of lag. And with the SNES, it's especially bad. The NES isn't so bad if you look at timings on emulators, but the SNES seems to inherently have extra lag on it anyway that the NES didn't. And so, yeah, it does make some games unplayable if you've got the wrong sort of setup. Whether, the average person isn't going to need to spend 180 quid on a Super NT because they can get this super low latency, super accurate emulation, but there is a core audience who want, a good, basically, replicated SNES system that will work on an HDTV rather than buying a SNES or having a SNES, getting the right RGB output to go into a FrameMeister, which a FrameMeister's 200 odd quid, and doing all that, and the FrameMeister itself anyway adds not much latency but a bit of latency. There's the open source scan converter which has less latency, but again that's 100 and something quid I think now. So it serves a definite market, but I don't think the average person necessarily is going to want it. And it's getting better than the original analog NT, which was this premium NES from machined aluminium billet, in this real, and they used to do the cherry wood MVS Neo Geos, and make this really high end, like an audiophile would with a really nice CD player and an amplifier. They sort of were going that route with making a really nice high quality gaming system. But to your average person, no, it's not going to make a difference. But then, your average person isn't going to spend £1,000 on a CD player either. But there are still audiophiles buying £1,000 CD players. So,
crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that kind of ties in with this next story I've got. If you've listened, well, you will have listened to live news, which we've done tonight, where we talk about CRTs and whether they're going to be, they're starting to become a little bit harder to come by now. But also you have got these systems that are coming out with FPGA technology that allow people to sidestep CRTs and get a good low latency signal to an HDTV. But there's a story on The Verge that I came across all about sort of these stores that are basically sort of stockpiling and renovating CRTs, and this whole sort of history of the CRT and why it came about. And then it goes into, it goes basically into the Sony PVMs and Trinitrons and why they're kind of the sort of pinnacle of CRT technology, and why people are now, the price of Sony PVM monitors is starting to go up and up and up, because they're becoming the sort of big thing to do. And these once discarded TVs that were in junk shops all over the place, according to Scott, still quite readily available in America, but they are becoming sort of rarer and rarer over here at the moment, and people are trying to keep them alive, and they take them to retro expos, and it's got all about that, and the arcade monitor situation. And so yeah, it's a good article for just sort of reading up on the CRT technology, really.
What are they going for, Trinitrons?
Trinitrons, I don't think, if you can find them, there won't be much here. PVMs, it was kind of a crapshoot between, you either find a decent one that they're just getting rid of it out of a hospital or a TV studio, and they don't care, they just want to put them on a pallet and get shot of them, and they'll be dirt cheap. Or you then get the sort of the aftermarket that are picking them up and reselling them, and they're sort of heading up now from what was practically being given away to sort of £100 to £200 over here. Trinitrons and stuff, they're probably still cheap, but it's just coming across them is the real problem. It seems to be over here now. Certainly, I've not personally been seeing much. I used to I was saying to Mike and Scott, I'd be at the garage getting tyres, and someone in there would be like, just complaining to the guys. They're just like, oh, I've got this telly, I can't get rid of it, I need to get rid of it, don't know what to do, what should I do with it? And I'd just turn around and be like, hey, I'll take it off your hands for you, no problem, mate. And I'd see him later on that afternoon. But seem to be becoming rarer. So whether there's going to be a factory that sort of like the Polaroid factory got bought out by a company and they sort of got that back up and working, will someone buy a load of CRT manufacturing parts and have a sort of small side business going in the future? We will see. But I think there's definitely a market going to continue for them.
One here from Sparklepuss. The 5th annual Southern Fried Gaming Expo in Atlanta, Georgia, in June the 8th to the 10th. Are you going down there again, Sparkle? Is he there? Maybe not. He was in the car on his phone.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
I am. I got to talk to Scott and see if he wants to go. Right now, I'm tentatively scheduled to go to Portland for work that week, but I could probably switch it around. It's always been a good time. I don't have it up in front of me, but can you read some of the guests that they're going to have there? Because there was one or two in particular that I felt were really cool this year. Those guys do a great show. If you're anywhere within driving distance, Southern Fried Gaming Expo, I've been to it, I think every year. So they do a fantastic job. There's a lot of pinball there, a lot of arcade games. So world-class expo as far as I'm concerned. Best one to go to, retro gaming in Southeast United States. Mike, who are some of the guests that are going to be there this year?
So just pulling up the list now. Oh, it says... Oh, they've not got the page up to date. It said 2017 guests will be announced soon. So I did see in the email Steve Ritchie has been announced. Pinball designer, of course. But they've not updated the page with this year's full list. So I can't tell you, but other than Steve Ritchie. Get your website up to date, guys. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely worth going to see Steve. Or check out, I think it's show 44, where Steve was a guest. Might be 77, I'm sure it's a double digit like that. In fact, let's go and have a look. Past interviews. So what year would that be? Let's have a look. Steve Ritchie was interviewed about AC/DC pinball in an AC/DC pinball special. It was indeed Roundup 44, 2012. There you go. So go and catch up with Steve. See what he's been doing for the last 5 years.
Doing it, man.
Did you, when Scott was doing the bit about Twin Galaxies, did he do the updates from Billy Mitchell's reactions to his accusations?
We didn't, but you could touch on it briefly if you'd like.
So, I mean, the main thing that, and it hit mainstream as well. A lot of mainstream podcasts as well as news sites picked up the quote, and it was, essentially, if you didn't know, Billy Mitchell's been called out because someone analysed one of his videos, worked out from the way that the screen draws various items that it's the MAME version rather than the arcade version that's in this video. So Billy Mitchell then came out and his quote is, "I've never even played MAME. I don't have MAME loaded in my home." The film footage that he has, that Jeremy, the initial accuser, has, shows MAME play. Now I contend that if he gets the original tape or he gets the original room shot, he will see that what I say is true. I'm not disputing what he says. What I am disputing is the fact that I want him to have the original tape. And the fact of the matter is that the original footage was given to Twin Galaxies. Twin Galaxies has it or should have it. And if it's anywhere other than Twin Galaxies, that's a real problem. So, the guy who said, this footage we've got, this looks like it's MAME play. And he's gone, I don't know what MAME is. But you're right, that does look like MAME play, but that's not my video. Twin Galaxies have got that. Talk to them, they'll sort it out. If they haven't, well. So yeah, that's a bit weird, that one.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't see the point in him cheating. The guy's obviously an amazing gamer. He's held various records at different times of his career. Is he the best gamer in the world anymore? Probably not. But, when you open it up to so many people and people have been gunning for his scores, somebody's going to eventually beat you. So I don't think you can take away sort of the totality, the entire scope of his work as far as professional gaming, if that's what you want to call it. But I just find it odd that he would be trying to cheat, knowing that he's under so much scrutiny. It just seems very unwise, and I don't know. I just somebody like that would purposely be trying to cheat. You know what I mean? Because it would all be taken away from you.
But it's not like he's made. You wouldn't cheat. The reason you cheat is if you were going to stand to make millions of dollars out of being great at Donkey Kong, but you're not going to make millions of dollars out of being great at Donkey Kong. So there's no real incentive to cheat, but then also,
well, the score that they're talking about was submitted in King of Kong, so it made the main crux of the film. Oh, look! By the way, Billy Mitchell submitted this tape.
But how much did he get out of that, and so on? And then also, for someone to be that bothered to bring it up now and to spend however much time they have analysing it, that score's been surpassed by many people now.
I think what prompted it was obviously the Todd Rogers stuff. So they thought, well, let's have a look at some of Billy's. Simples.
I mean, people will cheat for ego and all kinds of other things. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily that he got rich off of it. I mean, but he plays the role of the heel in the movie. I don't know if you've met him, Dave. I've met him on a couple occasions. Super nice guy. Doesn't drink alcohol. Like, just a really nice guy. He's always very personable anytime I've met him. That said, I don't know. Is he a cheater? Who knows? I mean, you can't take away the guy's a fantastic gamer at some level. I just find it hard to believe that he would try to game the system and put out a, splice together something in MAME, and it just seems like it's too much work.
Yeah. Like you say he's a nice guy. Every anecdote I've heard, like even from people, not who've met him in a sit down and meet with him kind of situation. This is just people who've bumped into him, like randos that, he doesn't have to be nice to necessarily. They're just like weirdo nerds and stuff. But, he's a genuinely nice guy. So yeah, it's just a weird statement the way he sort of put it together as well. I don't know. Like, I don't think he had needed to necessarily respond to it, perhaps. But yeah, it's all just a bit strange.
Well, con season's coming up, and he'll probably be doing the circuit again. I mean, he's usually at several conventions throughout the con circuit season, so I don't know.
One here from Spinal again. Sam's Journey. Just thought everyone should know there was an excellent looking C64 game released recently. Sam's Journey is available on disc.
We did this one when you're
okay,
or whatever you're doing.
I remember that, yeah. So I'll take one from Sean Stevenson, Retro Sean to his friends. And this is the Pocket Sprite, which is what looks like an incredibly tiny Game Boy. The problem with it I have is that it's possibly too tiny. There was, the RG Boy was a small sort of thick credit card sized Game Boy form factor-ish device, but it could only really support. Well, it was only really. I mean, it could probably support fairly complex games, but the way it was only going to sort of support fairly simple stuff. But this is kind of an all-round emulation system for sort of 8-bit and below sort of games, but in this tiny form factor. And it's just, one of my mates was kind of quite into it, thought it looked quite cool, but as a keyring sort of handheld emulator. But I think it's just a bit too small. It looks even more.
I don't think I could press one button at once.
Yeah, in the pictures they show, it almost looks smaller and fiddlier than a Dreamcast VMU to try and play games on. And if you're trying to play, well, the screen resolution's pretty crap as well. So if you're emulating a NES game like Mario Brothers at 96 by 64 pixels, so you're already kind of chucking away a lot of detail on the screen, and then you've got this little fiddly joypad. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of cool as like a, you could see it being a 30 quid thing in a gadget shop, toy thing, like how they kind of, well, I was going to say kind of how they did the Pocket Game & Watch series a few years ago.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those.
Keyring versions of those. But those are Game & Watch games. They're actually kind of playable on just tiny buttons and tiny screens, whereas full-fledged things, I mean, I think there's one of the screenshots shows Master System Sonic title screen. Like, I wouldn't want to play Sonic on it, I don't think.
No.
So, yeah.
Too small.
Kind of, yeah. Interesting novelty, not for adult hands, perhaps.
No. I'm just trying to bring up the next one, which, there we go. One from Stephen Stuttard, who sends us articles most months. I just stumbled over this news on the Mercenary site. Paul Wokes, the author of Mercenary, Damocles, Encounter and Backlash, died last year. as he was private and not interviewed as far as I can tell by anyone. Really sad news, as I always hope to see an interview take place and personally buy him a pint for making some of my favourite games on any system. Another genius, getting a galaxy with planets and explorable cities on a single load floppy. Oh, and he invented the Nova load on the C64. Will be missed by a lot of C64 and Amiga owners, as well as a real visionary. R.I.P. Paul, says Stephen Stuttered, and obviously we would echo that.
So just to follow up on the Pocket Sprite, shortly after that I'd sent one about how it's smashed its crowdfunding goal. So clearly some people really think it's a good idea, even if we don't. And the next one then is from
lots of people have little hands.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Maybe they like to, things look bigger in the smaller hands. So we've got a Patreon about an interesting read from Kip Vanover. Apparently a Twitter bot provided the clue that finally solved a 28-year-old mystery about a DOS game that never shipped. And what's the Patreon actually getting you for this? They're just trying to save the game's history, and they've got sort of the usual Patreon Discord and Hangouts access to the project. And so basically, a bot on Twitter accidentally provided a clue that finally solved a 28-year-old mystery about a DOS game. It was... What game is... There's a different version of a game called Laser Lords, by the looks of things. Someone's saying that Star Tribes was never released, but clearly it's basically Laser Lords. Where did this GIF come from? And they're sort of heading into this, basically the history and the backstory of this unreleased, but maybe released as something else game, digging into the Internet Archive.
Was there a lot of people really interested in this?
Let's see what there's 322 Patreons. They're now getting $2,246 a month.
Mm.
Damn.
So yes.
So
yeah,
that's
we got more Patreons than we do.
Yeah.
Which means
wow.
We have a Patreon, folks. If you want to donate to the show, find us on Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. And we picked up another Patreon subscriber this month, and I think that's now 3. So thank you.
Killing it.
Killing it, yeah. We'll be retiring and living in high cotton in no time.
Annoyingly, yeah, their bottom end sort of buy-in, which is usually just to get like little updates, is actually $5, not $1. So I was going to say, hey, just throw them a buck.
We have $1. You can.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say,
throw
them a buck and keep an eye on this game if it's interesting to you. But you got to throw in $5 to keep up with it.
So you can throw us $1, and we'll update you on this game.
On everything. We update you on everything every month.
If at least 5 people throw in $1, we can back this, and then we'll just give you all the information.
Yeah. Yeah, we have 3 patrons, and we get $4 a month. And you can find us at patreon.com/RGR. Or you could use the donate buttons on the website, of course. All donations gratefully appreciated.
What else we got?
I'm just flicking through now, looking for one. We did that one. Some of them are.
Take one while you're looking.
Mm-hmm.
It's one that I've sent in, which is a follow-up to another one that I sent in a few months ago, which was about a blog on Gama Sutra about a guy making a Game Boy game, and him learning all the technical difference, specifications of a Game Boy and having to work his design around that, and what a kind of a modern approach to designing a Game Boy game. With the, I can't remember what the game was called now. I'm just following the link to the
sheep.
Next bit.
Something to do with sheep.
Yeah, it was sheep jumping up. It was like a doodle jump with sheep.
Mm-hmm.
But he's finally posted the second part, which was the bit that I was really interested in. Sheep It Up is the name of the game. But the second bit deals with sound stuff, but also actually making the actual cartridge, which is something that, as I've been dabbling in porting CG Adventures and messing about with Game Boy stuff, and been kind of trying to work out the best way, sort of cheapest way, without having to hack up lots of original cartridges and soldering EEPROMs or anything, like how to make Game Boy games in a modern era and sort of, make enough to sort of sell and get a decent...
Can you 3D print them?
You could 3D print the cartridges, yeah, and then it's more the circuit board that seems to be the problem, because there's just weird ways that the hardware works, and so whether you're going to have mappers and certain mappers only work certain ways, and it's getting that whole sort of stuff figured out. And it always seemed to be, despite the fact, for 20 years we've had repro multi-cart, bootleg Game Boy games floating around, there didn't seem to be like, this website will offer this service of just like, we'll just burn ROMs to cartridges and make repros. But I've not fully I've only got through to sort of his sound stuff. I've not gone into the cartridge bit side of his post, his second follow-up post, but that goes into him making the actual sort of custom PCBs and not having to butcher anything. So that's worth a read if you have any interest in Game Boy homebrew.
So that might be worth a read, but this is not worth a watch. I obtained the documentary that came out, I think it was last year, Memoirs of a Spectrum Addict by Andy Remick, and I was warned going into it that it wasn't very good, and I can confirm that it isn't very good. The sound is just bad. It's just been like no production done on almost the entire film. Different sections of the film are at different levels. The voiceover is done in someone's kitchen.
The voiceover was terrible.
Yeah, there are interviews done out.
Is it so bad it's good?
No, it's just so bad it's bad.
It's bad.
There were some interviews done outside with loads of bird noise on. Mark Jones is interviewed, and he has a few segments, cut in and out through the film. Each one of them has a background buzz on them. So,
does it sound like the voice of God? Like the levels are so bad?
Not that bad, but they are off. Definitely off.
That was the thing. Like,
crowdfunded or something?
I think it was crowdfunded. Actually,
must have been.
Yeah.
There's no way that.
No,
well, actually, I was going to say there's no way.
No production company has put it out. Let me just say that.
No, but someone could have made it for £200.
Yeah,
off their own back, I guess. But
it looks like it. Now, most of the people are interviewed face to face. John Hare is interviewed over Skype, which doesn't look great in a film. That's fine for a podcast or a YouTube, show about games or something, but not a film. I'm afraid doesn't come over well. There's a guy, Steve Turner from Graph Gold, is interviewed, obviously at Christmas. He's got all his Christmas decorations behind him, which, again, just doesn't look great in a film. It just looks like...
What do you got against Christmas?
Nothing. I love Christmas, and I had a great Christmas, but it just doesn't look good in a film when... when you're watching it in February. And parts of it just look like a home movie. There's just no production done on it at all, and it really is quite poor, I'm afraid, and just kind of peters out.
It was a Kickstarter that made £6,353 of a £1,000 goal. And I think that's kind of ballpark, maybe a bit less than the budget for our feature film that we're making, a bunch of us, and I'm pretty confident that it's nowhere near like the production quality of this.
Are you teasing this? Is this a tease?
What, the feature film? I'm only sort of a bit of assistant crew.
You're kind of backtracking now.
But I do have a cameo in it.
Your film was the shit 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, this shit with like, you were part of this team, and now you have a small bit part, you kind of cameo. Well, what the fuck's going on here?
I'd link you to the trailer, but the trailer doesn't reveal much, so yeah, I'd like to get more. There's some interesting vape special effects from me. That's my proudest moments.
Okay.
All right. Next up is the Apple HomePod speaker. We know we're similar to the Google Home thing, the Alexa from Amazon. Apple made their own called the HomePod, and it's damaging people's furniture. I'm guessing it's running so hot. The CPU's near the bottom somewhere, maybe, but it's leaving a ring on the furniture.
A silicon bottom of it to grip the surface.
Oh, is it?
And that silicon is reacting with like wood polish and wax and varnish.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So a change of materials needed then. But Apple's solution to this, you might want to restain your furniture. Cheers.
Thanks. Nice one.
Yeah.
You've probably got enough money to just buy new furniture.
Yeah, probably.
So one here that Mike sent in that I like because it's Virtual Boy and it's another Racket Boy post and it's games that define the Nintendo Virtual Boy. So this goes through. Did you do a top 10 Virtual Boy?
You were in it, so yes, I think we did, didn't we?
We did specific Virtual Boy. I know I've thrown Virtual Boy stuff into top 10s.
Well, let me pull up the list and I'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, like going through this, it starts off Wario Land, which I know I've definitely talked about. That was certainly in failed systems. Mario Tennis, that was Scott's in failed systems. Galactic Pinball, that's definitely come up.
Yeah, no, we haven't done a specific top 10.
Mario Clash, I was never that keen on. I don't think I like the original Mario Brothers too much anyway. Red Alarm, which is I kind of in a way do like because I like Star Fox, but my god, the frame rate is poor, and because it's a wireframe, it's mostly nonsense that's going on. Telero Boxer, it's kind of it's a decent punch out alike, I suppose. It's probably not as good as say Infinity Blade in terms of taking that formula, but yeah, there's always things worth playing on a Virtual Boy, which is why I've got a Virtual Boy. So there's a little article to anyone who hasn't experienced one, might convince them to get one.
More Nintendo news. This is the face-to-face cabinet that you slot your Switch and controllers into.
No, that was the first one I did.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, yeah, but there was a Nintendo 64, first Nintendo 64 cartridge game since the system was discontinued. Is currently on Kickstarter by Pico Interactive. The game is 40 Winks.
Ooh. Oh, this.
Yeah, that never saw the light of day, I believe, on the N64. I believe it came out on PlayStation 1. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not reading anything because I'm not in front of the computer, but I believe it's over 100,000 right now. Well over their goal, so it looks like they'll be the first full-scale production N64 cartridge in a while, if that's something you're looking for. 40 Winks.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of saw that and I was like, I don't think anyone really... Bible Adventures has some sort of... it's got a bit of a historical thing about it. And all that sort of stuff that he used to re-release. But 40 Winks, it's like, it just seems like a pretty mediocre platformer.
But know, right now, people that grew up with the N64, they have jobs, they're late 20s, early 30s, they have disposable income, they might not really have kids yet, so it's sort of in that prime time for people to kind of dump money and start collecting it. I mean, N64s are really sought after collectible right now. So it makes sense that, strike while the iron's hot. People are looking for N64 stuff, and it's doing good, I guess.
And there is a Kickstarter. I think it was Kickstarter, might have been Indiegogo, something like that. But Scott backed it on my behalf, so it gets shipped to him in the US. And it is a modern N64 controller, laid out like 360, something like that. They've done a complete redesign, and so he backed that on my behalf. So I shall be receiving one of those at some point, and placed through some N64 games on hardware. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cause I got the Mako pad, which is also known as the Sharkoon pad, I think, which sort of changes the layout a bit, and that was really good. And it it's got a much better quality analog stick. It works in a different way, and that was kind of much better for some games, like driving games. But some games work better with the original layout of the N64. But there's definitely a weirdness about the N64 pad and situation.
I liked
what's best.
I played so much GoldenEye and Conquer. I mean, as long as
played?
Go ahead.
So have you played GoldenEye recently?
Yeah, I know it hasn't aged well, but I'm saying at the time, I really liked it. It was very finicky and fragile, but if you had one that worked, it worked quite well.
I never had a problem playing games with it. The joystick is one of the biggest failure points on it. They just get sloppy, but yeah, I never had an issue with the original controller. But a redesign is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of Mario 64 and all sorts of stuff on there, and yeah, it was good at the time. But it's like the GameCube controller. It's like it's a decent controller, but then also the layout doesn't really suit everything. It's not at all. You've got to really design a game around that controller to a degree. So I've got a fun one here from Mike James, which is a forwarded press release, which says 2 weeks left to qualify for Meow Wolf Gallagher World Championship, which 2 weeks expired. From February 15th has gone.
Yeah.
But it's just so we're working with Meow Wolf and XSplit on the launch of the first annual Retro Gaming Championship, Score Wars, the first of which will be based around the legendary arcade game Gallagher. Now, this is the first I've seen of this. They've not done a very good job of publicising this, presumably. Well, obviously we're late, but you did have the chance to qualify for a chance to be flown over to Score Wars by Meow Wolf, whoever they are, to compete for the $10,000 top prize. So get on over to Score Wars and register your high score now.
Yeah, they're a little late with the game. I mean, the game has been out for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pick something relevant, dudes.
They have a Dave & Buster's near us, and they have a Galaga that's on one of those big, with the tiny dot matrix type lights and stuff. I mean, it's awesome to play. I mean, it still holds up.
Something that may still hold up is the basic programming Smile Basic, which is headed for the Switch. It was, of course, on the DSi and the 3DS earlier. Fairly basic, basic program, but you can, do some coding, make some very simple games and animations, etc. on your Switch, if you're interested.
I just noticed that Kip, as well as me, and I have someone else as well, noticing that of course, Atari are jumping on the blockchain cryptocurrency bandwagon, not only with one cryptocurrency, but with two, depending on whether you're playing on their gambling casino games or just their presumably online arcade sort of ish games or what. But their stock jumped up from it. We know Atari are not the Atari. You know, it's just a holdings company. But hey, it seems that you just all you need to do is say, hey, I'm on the blockchain. I'm doing a cryptocurrency, and your stock jumps. So maybe that's should be a retro VGS crypto thing.
Yeah, we touched on that one earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting, but weird.
The whole blockchain thing is gonna sort itself out eventually.
You hope.
Yeah, I hope, because I've lost quite a bit of money
so far.
Which may be why our top 10 is what our top 10 is this month. But
one here, which I'm not about to attempt to decipher at this late hour. It's already tomorrow, basically. From Kip, and it is a pretty interesting paper on upsampling pixel art to vector. Would be pretty cool to see this used on a few emulators. And he sent us another one that, again, I'm not going to attempt. And this is the Commodore kernel history. Fairly long write-up, goes into an awful lot of detail. And it is indeed about the evolution of the Commodore kernel. So get your propeller hat on and give that a read.
So Chloe Wickham has sent something about building a perfect pillow fort, which does not have any pictures of her in her pajamas, and unfortunately it completely lost me, and I lost all hope at the point where it says it would be amazing if you'd consider republishing the infographic on your site. So
this pillow fort thing is huge. My kids watch videos on YouTube all the time.
Are you joking?
No, man, it's huge. They want to build pillow forts everywhere. And there's these grown-ass men go to, like, fucking Walmart and, like, hide in shelves and, like, build forts, like, inside of Walmart and, like, order themselves pizza and, like, hang out in shelving and, like, make little forts and, like, barricade themselves in at different stores. And now every time I'm at a damn store with them, they're like, hey, they try to sneak off. We're at Lowe's, you know, that's a big hardware chain here. And they're trying to build a fort out of, like, Rubbermaid containers or something. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? They're like, oh, I don't know. We're just building a fort here. It's like, yeah, you can't do that. I don't know what's wrong with you.
There's a craze at the moment.
It's a big thing now.
Yeah, there's another craze. I don't know if we talked about it last month. We might have done. And the idea is to hide in a big store like that all night, overnight, without being discovered. So people are like going into IKEA, hiding in one of the pre-assembled wardrobes or under one of the beds or something like that, and staying in there all night, making videos to prove it, and then coming out in the morning. Some kid did it, and his parents had no idea where he was. There was like a full-scale police search for him, and he's fucking hiding in IKEA. So make sure if you take him to IKEA that you leave with them.
Hey, Mike, did you do the Easter Bunny with your kids?
Yeah.
I think I screwed it up because my little one's like asking questions now. Like I wasn't quite sure. You know, with like Santa Claus, at least here you leave out milk and cookies, and then they eat like milk and cookies, and he leaves presents and stuff. So with the Easter Bunny, like she couldn't understand why we made eggs, and I think in her mind she was like, you know, the Easter Bunny's kind of weird, and I'm like, all right, she's getting to that age where she's like gonna figure it out, or you know, she knows something's a little suspect, you know, and she's like, because when he comes here, he eats the eggs we dye, and then he poops out plastic eggs with toys in them. And I was like, yeah, just don't discuss that with anybody. You know, it's it won't be good.
Yeah, you fuck that up. Easter Bunny eats carrots, dude.
She'll end up being vegan before you know it, and then all shit will go wrong.
Yeah.
The Easter Bunny eats carrots. Leave a carrot out for it. And we also use the Easter Bunny with my second child. Had like a dummy, you'd call it, a pacifier. And getting one of those things off a kid can be a hell of a thing. And so one year we said, oh, the Easter Bunny takes away those, you know, but he will leave you some eggs. So she was fine with that. That's how we got away with it. She got a shit ton of Easter eggs, but lost the pacifier. So that was good.
It is an interesting thing, though, if you think about it. Like, I mean, like rabbits are known for procreating profusely.
Shitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and eating that shit. But then to leave like painted chickens' eggs, like where there's a disconnect there somewhere. But
yeah. One here from Video Games Live. It's another Kickstarter, and this is Video Games Live Level 6. We've talked about them on the show before. I've backed their projects before, and it's well worth doing. We've been to see their gigs in Manchester. They tour the whole freaking world. Yeah, Tommy Tallarico and various orchestras traveling the world and playing video game music for you live. It's a great show. Get along to it live if you can. If not, do the next best thing and back his Kickstarter for CD album number 6. And as with all of their Kickstarters and crowdfunds, they offer a ton of perks. So I think the top one on this, I was reading through, it's like $10,000, but you get to go along to another a show anywhere in the world. You can help them do an arrangement of a song, and you can go to the first show where they play that live. You can hang out with them for the day. Just tons and tons of different perks. Worth reading through the campaign just to see some of the perks on offer, but definitely back it at least at the CD level and help them out and make it happen.
We should definitely go to another one.
Yeah, we should.
A lot of us.
There's one here, and with all the micro handhelds we've discussed and the homebrew Game Boys and all that, I can't remember if we've actually done this one. It's the VMU with a retro Pi inside. Did we cover it yet? Nobody's saying yes, so we'll just briefly do it anyway. Someone has put a Pi inside a Dreamcast VMU and made, obviously, a mini Game Boy thing. And they've added, I think this is the one where they've added a couple of buttons on the back as well to, for the L and R shoulder buttons. But yeah, another great mini project that if you can hold it in your hands and play games with it, it'd be worth looking at. But again, might be too small for me.
Probably not. I was going to make a MP3 player out of a VMU using a SanDisk Sansa, but playing games on them, it never really worked as a system at the time, and it's not going to work now, is it?
It's not.
No.
I clicked on one of yours, UK Mike, about Sega and Super Bowl UK joining forces, and I don't really understand what's going on. There's some mention of like a venue opening in Ipswich, which is not a big thing because it's Ipswich, and then stuff about Super Bowl UK, which what's Super Bowl UK? Like, is this a thing?
This is basically it's billed as the UK getting Sega arcades back. You remember the old Sega Worlds that we used to get? And so like the Trafford Centre, you've got the Namco arcade there, which is attached to the bowling alley, and I think this is going to be something similar, where you've got a Super Bowl bowling alley. You may well find some Sega arcade games at some point.
Oh, okay. I was thinking because we've just had the actual Super Bowl.
No,
that it was
it's not
some
that
sort
Super
of like,
Bowl.
Yeah.
It's a national
The
chain of
UK
bowling alleys.
American Football League Super Bowl that Sega was supporting in Ipswich. What?
Yeah. That wouldn't have made sense. Okay. We're finally finished. It's already tomorrow here.
It is.
And I've got to go and edit this shit now in the next 2 days. So, show will be out as and when.
No pressure.
No pressure, no, exactly. Thanks for joining us. We've had a few people dipping in and out of chats, and some stuck around for the whole damn thing. Eldfam was there again, 2 months running. Chris Lethgo's been in there all night. And Mike at mgarcia.org has been in there for quite a while as well. I think a new face, unless he's gone by another name in the past. So thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you next month for some more shenanigans.
See ya. Got it?